more microphone?
Be helpful.
We should. No, we probably should get another one.
I mean, I don't mind sharing with Jason.
Because Tim and Mark share one, right?
No,
No.
Tim's got one in front of him. Yeah, I mean, how expensive can it be?
Making things a lot easier, bro.
I would get another one.
Yeah,
I think we should get wireless ones like this that you have to press the button. It makes it
yeah,
easier,
and that's
then
what
you
Dave
can
was
move
saying
it.
also,
Why not?
because then there's a
Yeah.
light on, and you can see when somebody wants to talk, so.
So there's no jumping on each other, you know, just hit the boom, light.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
when we were all in for 2020.
we should probably look at that. There've been enough complaints
Family Feud.
that we should probably make sure that we get the best. I mean, I don't know if these
What I
are
was
good or
kind of saying with Mark, it would be helpful because when you get the new podium, then it's mobile. If you have a wireless microphone, it doesn't matter where you put the podium.
right.
Oh, that's true.
And I think that's a good idea.
Even if we only get that one and then use that microphone up there.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what.
What the cost is, yeah.
All right, everybody ready? Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, March 21st. It is now 6:26 PM. Town Council meeting in the Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street.
Roll call. Councilman Lichardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Councilman Bourget,
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson,
Here,
Council President Goslin.
Here.
Quorum is declared. Consent agenda, approval of the minutes from the March 7th, 2023 regular town council meeting.
move approval of the consent agenda.
Second. Move a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinances, first reading of ordinance 2023-6, amending appendix C traffic ordinances, LaValley Street.
Move the ordinance.
Second. Move a second. Al?
That's an ordinance to place a no parking sign on the corner side, north side of LaValley Street, 95 feet easterly of the intersection of Main Street. There's a business located on the corner, and it creates a hazard for the fire department trying to get in. So they just want to
There's also
keep
been,
the other side open.
if I'm correct, there's been about 3 school bus accidents in the last 6 months. Just pulling out of that street. Any questions for Al? Any public comment on this ordinance? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Okay,
Yes.
yes. Mark,
Yes.
Mary Beth,
Yes,
and I vote yes.
First reading of ordinance 2023-7, amending appendix C traffic ordinances, Fairgreen Drive.
move the ordinance.
Second.
This one comes from the traffic committee. And no parking on the east side of Fairgreen Drive between the intersection of Meadow Drive and Fairgreen and on the southerly boundary of Fairgreen Drive.
Any questions for
I
Al?
believe I sent maps with it.
Any public comment on this? I got one behind. Just state your name and address for the record.
Jade Souza, and it's 20 Fairgreen. I am the person who actually initiated this. I just purchased that property. And the businesses that are facing Cohasset Ave, the patrons that go there are parking all along that area. Not only is it damaging my fence, my property, but it makes it impossible for me to back out of my driveway because it is kind of on a curve. We also had a car that got hit out in front of my house. I had an officer knocking on my door. I think it's just more for safety reasons that I think it should be implemented. There are children too in the neighborhood that walk through there. You can't see around at all. So, yeah, even when you pull up my address on Google, there are just cars lined, and the parking lots are essentially empty all day long. So it's definitely a hazard.
What, that's my area, so I'm just trying to figure out what businesses are there. Have the businesses been notified, Al? You know?
Major Asheville notified. I don't know.
Okay,
And they did suggest, because I had called to ask if I could put up my own, just because it was half my property, half the city's.
Mhm.
And he did advise that I could, to see if it did remedy, and it has. Everybody has been parking in the parking lot just fine.
Okay.
So I haven't had anybody parking there since those signs went up.
okay.
The major action will put in a process where.
Okay.
It's not formal, it's not required, but.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes,
And I vote yes.
First reading of ordinance 2023-10, amending appendix C traffic ordinances, Fawn Lane and Lonsdale Avenue.
move the ordinance.
Second.
Moving second, any
This
discussion?
is a stop sign at Fawn Lane at the intersection of Lonsdale. It came from a resident, reviewed by the major, and he recommended strongly. I can say that working with Major Archibald, anything I bring before you, he's going out and studied it and conferred with me and showed me maps and everything else, so that I don't have any problems in presenting anything he's given to me.
Does a very fine job at this.
If anybody's not familiar with the area, there's a lot of them around the town, around the state actually, where there's just a T, but it's a quiet neighborhood and so they just don't put a sign up, but apparently it's been an issue over there with people just no stop signs.
Right.
Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Jay?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes,
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Al, I just want to ask in Major Archibald, the resident who came up before, she brought up a good point. I had a resident, it's actually in Ward 3, ask me earlier this week about putting a parking for such and such an address only, or no parking or resident parking only, because on Washington Street, it seems like they're doing the same exact thing. And she asked for one parking spot, which is in front of her property.
For like a handicap or something like.
No, it's just-
Because we've done,
It's for her son, but that's their one parking spot is in front of their house. But Washington Street, it's on Washington Street and it goes all the way up and everybody, and all the other apartments take up all the road and she just needs her one spot. She wants to know
I
what her
would-
rights were.
I would have a problem in saying that we're gonna take one spot for one resident.
we've done it at least, I don't know, half a dozen times for, there was definitely,
This is not.
definitely one on
handicap.
Riverdale we put for handicapped. I know we
Yeah,
put
but
one
no-
for L for
But,
handicap.
but
Yeah.
handicap is a category.
Hold on.
What you're suggesting would open up a can of worms, because how do you choose and pick who's gonna get the spots?
No, I'm just asking if the resident has the right to put that sign up.
No.
That's not the town, but the resident.
Mike,
It's not enforceable. I mean,
That's what I was gonna say, they can put a sign up.
Not
it's just not gonna be
enforceable,
enforced.
but
Yeah, if it
as
works.
she said,
It
she
was-
put her sign up and it helped some of the problem. So if that individual decided they wanted to put their own, because there's right here in Arctic, I've seen some signs go up tenant parking only, and I know it's not town. So I'm asking.
I can't.
the answer
I
is
can't
it's
say yes to
unenforceable.
that.
Okay, it's unenforceable. Thank you.
the answer without the answer, a laugh.
Yeah, I can't say yes to that.
Thank you.
Business licenses.
Move approval of the licenses.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Any public comment on the licenses?
No,
Nope.
You're good.
Good evening.
Who are you?
The kennel licenses, there's 7 listed and we have 4 that have delinquent, 4 businesses or taxpayers that have delinquent taxes. Just so, you know, when I did send you an email, Sarah, so just wanted everyone to know that.
so I assume they won't be issued until
Right,
taxes
I
are
would-
taken care
I
of.
would assume so.
Yes.
How delinquent?
How delinquent? Let's see, no payments made. I don't want to, it's just,
Right.
all right, total for all 4.
Well, I'm not talking
But-
just like timeframe. Like
Is
a
it- is
month?
it a quarter or is
It
it?
looks like 2022 for one, 2021, 22 for another, 22 for another. and 22 for another.
So some of these kennel licenses are personal because they got more than 3 pets or 3 animals, but then others are businesses.
There is one business one on here.
Again, it won't be issued until the current, correct?
Correct.
And you have the list of. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
for the heads
So
up.
what do you do? Like, if
We
you
can,
have
we can
4,
approve, but with them subject to, and it's always subject to anyway, so. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, oh, Alan? That was a quick jump.
Regarding the people who are delinquent, you don't need a registered letter, but how about it in an email or a call to the owner, because they may not even realize that they are delinquent.
Sure.
So
You can
to
usually,
me, that would probably be
We
the
send
quickest
letters
way.
out when they're delinquent. They get a nice pink letter.
You
It's-
also get phone calls.
The tax
Okay.
collector informs them when they're delinquent, but we also, from our office.
just
we
wanna-
Inform them of anything that they're missing. It could be a fire inspection, it could be their taxes, it could be their
No
sewer
problem.
approval. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, appointments and resignations. Request from Janice Pexino for reappointment to the Board of Assessment and Review for term ending March 2026.
Move approval of reappointment.
second,
Moving second, any discussion? Janice is a constituent of mine. She's always been involved. In fact, she worked here for many years and then she went to East Greenwich as an assessor clerk, and she's retired from there, and she's always, anytime I've called her with any types of issues, she's always been responsive. I know that's Sal, if you've got something.
Yes, I've known Janice for quite a while. Here, East Greenwich and state of Rhode Island, where she worked, and she knows her business. She's a very good asset to have on the board.
Thank you. Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
New business. Request from Rocks Market for proposed zoning change for Assessor's Plat 15 lots 496 and 18 and referral to the Planning Board for recommendation.
Move approval.
second.
Moving second.
Mr. President,
Mr. Cronin, how are you?
you have the meeting moving along at a nice clip, and I have no intention of bogging it down.
That's good news.
As we have done in the past, this is an introduction for a proposal to change the zone on a lot in the town of West Warwick. The process has multiple parts. This is the first one. I let you know that this is going on. I ask that you, as the council, refer this matter to the planning board for their recommendation back to you. And then we have a public hearing, which is advertised and noticed to the abutters before the council, and the ordinance is read twice. As the council knows from the agenda, this is Rocks Market on the corner of Legris and Main Street. There's one large building, one large parking lot. However, there are 3 lots. 2 of those lots are zoned residential, 1 is zoned business. It's not even a situation where we can save it, because the lot that's zoned residential is the one that's right on the corner. So it makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
So Rocks Market's closed. There's no, we are looking to sell this in a commercially reasonable way. As this council is aware, there's interest in a car wash, as you referenced earlier, for this spot. And that is moving forward in planning, but that's independent of what we're trying to do here. We just want to have a commercial lot to sell in that manner, in a way that's consistent with the zoning ordinances of the town of West Warwick. So I'd ask that the council refer this to the West Warwick Planning Board for their hearing and recommendation back to this council.
From what I understand, there's been 4 or 5 businesses that wanted to go in there, and because of the way it's zoned, they just couldn't. So with
So it could change even, you know,
Right.
could change from a car wash to
something else.
something
else,
else, but
right.
it could. Al? Oh,
Right.
excuse me.
Go back one. Yeah, I'm gonna show my age again.
Oh, boy.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Rocks Market originally faced Legris Avenue. It was the residents upstairs, a small market downstairs. I'm guessing that's how that section was residents, because that's the way it originally was.
And for all those years, it's never changed. And don't ask me how, because it's always been a business since I can remember.
So this is the first step right here. Next step goes to planning. And then comes back to the council.
Any other questions?
Just curious, Tom, the picture that you gave us, there's like a little piece that goes to Center Street.
Yes.
So tell me, what's that all about?
So I was a little surprised, Vice President, when I ran the title, I thought that that was going to be a right of way, but it's actually part of the lot. And it looks like it maybe was a driveway or something, but there's a significant elevation change and everyone has driven by there many times and a retaining wall at this time. So I don't think it has any particular use, but it is part of the property, not a paper street, not a right of way, just a piece of real estate.
So does it cause concern for the two pieces of property that it runs between? I mean, does it impact how they're living now, how the houses are situated, what they're using for driveways? That I would be concerned about that.
Yeah, I think that that concern is one that would be raised by an applicant who's looking to develop this property. I don't think that's usable space.
Okay.
They probably would be willing to just leave it the way it is because of that elevation change in the retaining wall. There's no connection to the rest of the property at all. It's been cut off by a fence and a cement wall.
Right.
So, yes, it's a good observation, and I thought it was going to be something like a right of way or a
Okay.
paper street, but it didn't turn out that way.
Okay. Thank you.
I see Marilyn in the audience. Do you have anything to say, Marilyn? Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Request from the police chief for police communications replacement upgrade.
Move approval.
Second.
Good evening, members of the council. I am requesting authorization to accept the proposal from Cybercom Incorporated of Warwick, Rhode Island for the installation of a new police dispatch console, radio communication system, and workstation upgrades. Our current system is 25 years old and beyond its expected life expectancy. Furthermore, we have been advised that Motorola will no longer service or support our current system. Replacement parts, new or used, are no longer available, and our system has gone down with increasing frequency, which is potentially dangerous for our officers and citizens. Cybercom Incorporated of Warwick, Rhode Island is our current vendor, and they're a certified contractor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for public safety equipment contracts. Rhode Island is a participating entity in a master price agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated, the manufacturer and provider of the equipment needed for this project. Additionally, Cyber Communications, Inc. is a sole source provider of Motorola Solutions equipment installation and service in Rhode Island. I am therefore respectfully requesting authorization to accept Cybercom's proposal in the amount of $498,200.12. I'm requesting that the funding source for this project be the police detail expense account. Thank you for your consideration of this important project.
Any questions from the council?
Chief, with the account, how much do you have in the account?
About $1 million.
Okay.
What's
So you-
put on
so you have
the
enough.
detail side, huh?
Is this, how long does it take this to go in? And are there going to be issues in the meantime? 'Cause you said that they can't repair stuff now.
So Cybercom has been great with us. So they've been to the police station 3 or 4 times just in March, and they've been able to kind of do some patchwork to make sure that it's at least functioning. We do have a backup system, of portable radios. It's something we don't want to have
Oh,
to
no.
deal with. They've been fantastic with, they have a supply of used parts they've taken from other systems, but the reality is there's no parts availability, new or used, except for what they have on hand. So they've been able to make it work. But again, it's going down with, increasing frequency, which is certainly a safety concern.
If we
for
approve
us.
it tonight, they should be able to install it like sooner rather than later. Is there?
Well, yeah, we're gonna meet next week and get a time frame because there's some other, structural work that we'll have to do in-house, but, we're looking, they understand the importance of it. They've actually made us realize, the timeliness of this. So I don't expect that there's gonna be much delay before the wheels are in motion upon approval.
The portables,
Yes,
we just bought some portables, right?
We've consistently tried to buy 2 or 3 portables per year.
Right, and these will be compatible with the new
Yes,
system.
yes.
And that's why he's trying to stick with Motorola.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
because of the expense we've already put in. Plus Motorola is part of this company's part of the state masters agreement, so we're all set with that.
That's correct.
And that's why, okay.
Yep,
Clarifying
that
on
information, I sent all 3 of those documents to Kristen prior to sending it to the council, just to make sure that we were good with, not having to go out for bid or RFPs. And I believe that any one of those 3 documents probably would have satisfied that, but I wanted to make sure that all of our bases were covered. That's why I've asked from Cybercom for all 3 of those documentation pieces. So I think we're more than good with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And believe me, I've been on the other end of the radio, as I said before, where you're clicking and nobody can hear you, and it's not a good situation to be
Yeah,
in.
and that's what happened when I first got on the job. Again, more than 25 years ago. But again, this system is 25 years old, and it's certainly well outlived its life expectancy.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Discussion of amendments to Chapter 10 Licenses and Business Regulations of the West Warwick Code of Ordinances and zoning changes relative to those amendments.
And this is a discussion only this evening.
Yes, I asked it to be put on for discussion only because talking with Sarah and working with Sarah, she and I are basically proposing that we move in a different direction than we've been going in with our licensing. As I explained in the detailed memo that I sent to you a number of years ago, the situation arose where we had businesses operating in the town, and nobody knew they were operating. Council at that time said, this is wrong. Number one, we're not collecting taxes from them. And in my opinion, the second part was even more important, where we were concerned. I think at that time, there may have been a business operating, and the business had hazardous or flammable material or something. And our fire department didn't know about it. So they could have been rushing in to a very dangerous scene. So the council said, okay, let's start licensing the businesses to come into town. Well, Sarah's opinion, my opinion, unfortunately, term license came about. This is the first step in changing that. We have a number of businesses that are coming before you to license, when there's really no sense, in Sarah's opinion, my opinion, of the extra work being done by the clerk's office. For example, if we have a business, a music store, that's the fire department, the building official, everybody goes out to it, meets all the standards. It's in a business zone. It's allowed by the zoning code. It comes before you. You can't deny it. It's a legitimate business, and there's no reason why you should. So what we are proposing is that in instances like that, instead of the additional process of licensing, the clerk's office issue registrations. That way we know they're here, we collect the taxes, and we have them inspected. Before any of those could go from license to registration, naturally, we're going to have the ordinance created. So the council's going to have the first say and say, no, wait a minute. We want to have a say in that particular instance. So the council's function will be protected as we move forward into this area. Right now, we have something like 120 different businesses that are licensed. And the licensing is a music store and a card store. They'd have a music store license and a card store license. So that, our first step is to phase out of the licensing where it can be, knowing full well that there are many areas that the council has to have the licensing, and working slowly towards that. The second area that we would like to be moving into, and I was hoping to do it with the automobile, and I'll explain why I couldn't, is to take an area that we can consolidate. For example, we have something like 20-some different types of retail stores. Instead of registering a retail store, we're licensing each different type. Well, Paula, they come in and she's befuddled by all the different types. So as we move forward through this, and hopefully, as I'm presenting changes to our ordinance to you, I'll be coming forward with a category asking you to, let's put these businesses into a retail category and issue permits for them. That's the future. But the reason I wanted to cover that with you is that because that's what was the thinking behind what I'm asking you to discuss tonight. A couple of weeks ago, I came forward because of a particular problem in town that I tried to cover with an ordinance that created a gas station and a service station. Well, I presented it and a number of valid comments were made that the ordinance just didn't do its job. Didn't cover Pep Boys. So I said, okay, let's try to do this in a different way. Let's take the category of automotive enterprises. And I went through the zoning code and the licensing and my own poor judgment, and I broke it down into different categories of automotive business enterprises. And I felt that a gas service station had what we needed for them had to be different than what we needed for an auto junkyard. So that's why I came up with the different 5 or 6 different categories, only because I felt that each different category, while it was automotive in nature, required some massaging and making fit that particular category. I covered in my memo to you what you have before you now is what I'll call a clean copy. What I sent to you with the memo, I highlighted areas that I thought might raise an issue. I'll cover one of them because it's my own thinking on it. Was at the last meeting, the question of limiting auto repair shop, a gas station repair shop, to 6 spaces. And there was a question, was this enough? Well, I stopped and I thought about it and I said, number one, we're getting rid of all unregistered cars. Number 2, the category is people that are going to pick up the car that's been repaired. Well, if my car's been repaired, I'm probably not going to leave it there much longer than tomorrow. So those 2 categories, I don't think are going to have cars on there. So, well, now we've got cars that are under repair and are waiting for parts or service. I have no knowledge, but it was just my guess. And I said, in the size of those businesses that we have in town, how many cars are they going to, or motor vehicles, are they going to have on their property that they can't repair until they get a part for? Is it going to be more than 6? So when we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, it was suggested that instead of just saying 6, we do 2 things. We say you can have 4 cars per bay or 6, whichever is greater. My thought on this is that it's here tonight for discussion. Assuming the council wants to move forward, it would come back before you for first and second reading. At that point in time, anybody that thinks that's not enough or anything, they can let you know and it can be changed. Or if you put it in at the 6 or 4 per bay, And once we get it in, we find out from our business people, whoa, we can't handle that. It comes back and it's a matter of changing that number from 6 to 8 or whatever it is. But we have to find some place to start. And it was a matter that our old ordinance said 6, and that was the starting point. There are other changes. Some of the changes, as I mentioned, I looked at other ordinances from other communities and found myself, guided by them. And that's it. Not trying to answer any questions you got. What I did was the second ordinance, basically in our table of uses, I eliminated the uses that would no longer exist and put in the uses I'm creating. I referred all of that to the town planner. She questioned me on some of the categories, and then she reviewed the uses and what zones they should be in, and she approved those uses. So that I got somebody who knows what she's doing, not me, to decide on the use table. Any questions, and we could move forward as this is a starting point.
Al, I can tell you, I'm not for limiting the number of cars on a property. I understand efficiency. I'm all for efficiency. But I did speak with people in that world talk. And I have at least 4 in my ward. And I get a few calls over the weekend, asking if they had to come down to either watch the meeting or while it was happening, or got told about it and watched it on YouTube. But one in particular, and I tell you, he said I can use his name, Baco, right up the street from me. I happened to get gas up there, and right away it was, what's going on here? What are you trying to do? That came to me. So we counted the cars in his lot. It's a lot. There's 3 bays and there's a lot more than 6, and the 3 bays are full. So the lot is able to get around. It's his lot. He pays the taxes on it. And I can't repeat some of the other things he said right now. But I took the brunt of it. And I had another couple people call me.
That's why I said it the way I did. The present ordinance is they're only allowed 6.
Mhm.
That's it. I thought when you said 3 bays, okay, he would be allowed 12. Okay, I personally don't, that's a council decision. I personally don't, I don't want to say I don't care, but I took the ordinance we had as the basis for what I was presenting, made modification because I knew that this was the question. Added my own poor judgment and said 6 or 4. And to me, whether you say no limit, whether you say 2, I'm not passing the buck, but that's your decision, not mine. I'll put in that ordinance, whatever I'm told to. And that's not a major, a major problem to change the ordinance. That's a one
I think
sentence
obviously
change.
we need to, and I mean, unless we get into a situation like anybody who in the industry is taking advantage and putting cars on the street and blocking like this lady's house. I mean, that becomes a different issue. That becomes a police issue, and that needs to be addressed with that business, correct?
Yes, but that doesn't work.
I mean, it doesn't-
I'll let the town manager speak.
There are, obviously, if it's a registered car and it's public parking, there's not a difference between whether a residence parks in front, whether their guests park in front, whether a client of a business parks on a public street. That's only one part of the problem. I think the bigger issue is some of our businesses that have an excessive amount of vehicles on them. I think from the residents and the people that are passing perspective, that
it's unsightly and they're more concerned about the unregistered vehicles or the ones that are in various states of disrepair, flat tires that are visible from the street. And many of them are on our major thoroughways, so that's the image that people have. So I think that's part of the concern. I assume that's why 6 were in place. I think that's very archaic. It probably made sense when households didn't have 2 or 3, 4 cars per family. So 6 is, like I said, archaic and low. So where can we go? How can we set that up? Because right now we have an ordinance that we don't enforce.
Right. Let me, I'm not for a limit either, because like, how long can they be there? So I know the place I do, my mechanic, he only has 2 bays, but he's very busy, and a lot of this stuff is just oil changes. So he usually has people drop the vehicles off the night before or that morning, and then they pick them up when they get out of work late in the day. So he could have 15 cars there throughout the days. All he did, majority is oil changes. You know, I mean, I know it's common sense, but common sense doesn't exist anymore. And I was going to save this line for a little bit later in here, but and it's due to lawyers and politicians that common sense is gone. You know, when you have a politician who is also a lawyer say, what's the definition of is, you know, this is what we get down to when we write things in here to, you know, all right, it says 6 vehicles, we're going to hammer this guy because it's noon and he's got 20 vehicles here, you know, even though they're all going to be going in 4 hours. You know, common sense goes out the window. As far as the other issue, if we have businesses like that, like of residents, I just had the building officials office go out and look at because it looks like a junkyard. And so we already have ordinances in place that handle cleaning up these areas that look like junkyards, where they go out, they look, they talk to the people, hey, you gotta clean this up, they give them a time frame. If they don't, then, you know, they can start issuing fines. So to me, we already have that in place, unless I'm missing something, to where we can handle these businesses.
I did give some thought, and I honestly did not know how we would go about phrasing it. That my major concern in looking at some of these stations that are giving us the problem is just driving by. You know, there are cars that are parked there or vehicles that are parked there. For whatever reason they're parked there, they're not a customer, they're there. My guess is they're there to get parts and what have you. That should be in a junkyard category. If they're there for parts. I mean, I have a problem that I'm running a gas station, but I got cars sitting here, not under repair.
Service station, not a gas station.
Service station. Cars
There we
sitting
go.
here that are not under repair. Maybe I own them, maybe I don't own them, but they're just sitting there. That's,
But,
And
but wouldn't that fall under the same ordinance that the building official went out to his private residence and said, listen, your yard is disgusting, your complaints,
but
clean
we've
it.
but we've got to have a standard
Now,
for them to enforce.
so in the past, I know there's been residents who've come to the council meetings, talk about garages that are over, you know, just, they look like a mess, right, or whatever. And normally, in a good world, everybody, you know, works together. So I know in the previous administrations or whatever, they would just call the business, say, hey, we've got a complaint, can you clean it up? It's usually done in a week, right? And we've had that done. Unfortunately, it's some businesses that just don't want to listen, you know, and you're right. You go by Bagels, it's presentable, it's got some U-Hauls, it's got, you know, he keeps everything organized. You know, you go by Tony One Stop, he's organized. Even the individual in Phoenix, you know, he's got a small little parking lot, but everything's organized down Main Street of Coventry. Everything is, you know, but it's organized, you know, and they try to work with us, but individuals in situations that don't, those are the ones I mean, unfortunately, we have to enforce somehow. And how do we do that is another whole story.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Isn't the ordinance that was just used on a resident applicable to the business? If it's an unsightly area that it needs to be cleaned up, can't the building official go
No,
out and
because when you get into the residence, it's more than just unsightly. It's got to be some kind of a hazard type problem, because they can't just go in and say, the neighbors are complaining because you didn't cut your grass.
No, this is, was worse than that. It's kind of along the lines of what you're saying these automotive places are with,
I
No.
just,
I can say the situation that was brought before us before, I've taken a ride by, I think about 6 times in the past month since that conversation. Sometimes you can't even tell there's a business behind all the vehicles. You can't even tell there's something there.
Well, I was never told the address. I don't know
Right.
what it-
It's just,
I'm not asking you to tell it. right
no,
now.
I'm not. But again, and it does look unsightly. It doesn't, and people live across the street. You've
So
got
that's-
residentials looking at this every single day. And I joked with Mary Beth, but I said if there was one individual that was still living in the neighborhood, that he would have been at this meeting every single night. He was against the business going in, saying the lights are too bright, it's gonna light up the neighborhood and everything else. And, we kind of said, okay, but it is business, it is zone business, there's not much we can do.
I
But
don't
it
believe it
became
is zone
unpresentable.
business. I don't believe it is zone
I
business,
don't
is it?
think that is.
It's residential.
However, and you
Whether it's
mentioned-
grandfathered or not, but if it's in
Yeah,
a
no.
residential zone,
Yeah.
maybe there's a different rule for that than something on Cohasset Avenue. I
Well,
don't know.
I just don't want to blanket an industry. I
Right.
think, it's, and maybe I'm thinking of it a little bit differently than everybody, but you take the work when it comes in and you don't turn it away because you don't know if it's going to be there next week. So you make what you can. And then, I mean, I've talked to, different people and they're like, there's some weeks where I have my employees sweeping the floor. We're waiting for cars to come in. Because like every other business, there's a time when it's booming and there's a time when it's dead.
I can't
know?
disagree with you, Jason. However, along with business comes expense and comes obligation and comes the rules that you have to follow. It's part of business. I'm not, believe me, I'm not for driving business out. But I'm also think that you say to business, hey, you're in town, but these are our rules. And you're in business and you're gonna follow.
Why, so my question, like the number is, whether it's 6 or 4 or 10 or 50, like, why isn't the number based on how big the property is? Like,
Well,
I
the
mean,
number of bays, I think that's what Al tried to do.
No, I understand, but the number was,
And again, you're right, the
I threw
property
that
that
out,
you're
Jason,
talking
because
about.
I don't know
is
what
that
to
the
do.
one?
No, yeah, I'm just saying, because I mean, obviously it's gonna make a difference between the different sized businesses.
I thought of the size, but went with the 6, as I said, just because that was what.
And I
was
wasn't
there.
thinking even by bays, but I mean, if a place is a much bigger parking area, then obviously it makes a
I mean,
difference.
And there's the other dilemma of like, again, I'll go back to my mechanic. He shares a parking lot with another business. How do you know what businesses are cars for his business, what's cars for the other business? I'm not in favor of limiting. To me, I don't like blanket policies. I didn't like it when it was done, when I was working in East Providence. Somebody screws up, so you put a blanket policy on everybody, even though nobody else is doing it, instead of just addressing the issue. Address the issue, address the individual business, address it directly, so we're not impacting everybody else unnecessarily. That's the way I look at it.
Unfortunately, I'll put in, but I
Right,
have to be
it's
told
not
what
your
to
number,
put
right?
in.
Right.
It's our decision. I'm just vocalizing to the council, not so much to you.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that this is one that I threw it out as
example.
something that you're talking about.
In the very first part of Al's discussion, I agree with, I mean, and I think we all got the license fees.
Yeah.
There were 10 pages of fees.
Mhm.
A similar approach, I think, has to be taken. So you have a category, and whether it's category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's a fee associated with it. Because to have $30 for this and $19 for that, and it just makes no sense.
I agree. Registering instead of licensing.
We
I
are
am
not
all in agreement with
licensing,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
that is so much better, as long as it's not going to add an expense to the
As a
business.
sideline to that,
No,
that word licensing,
you get it.
meant recycling.
Yeah, we had
If
that
that
issue.
word had never come up, that never would have been the problem is, but because somebody mentioned license means in people's mind a lot different than registering.
Right.
And
Give you an example. You don't have to be licensed to be a contractor in the state of Rhode Island. You only have to be registered to be a contractor in Rhode Island. There's no fee, there's no testing or anything you do to get your registration. You just pay the fee, show you have insurance, and boom, you're a registered contractor in Rhode Island. Or if you want to be an electrician, you get licensed. You have to take the test, you got to show you know what you're doing, and that's the difference. And that's why I like what you're doing here because as you said, some of these businesses, they don't need to be licensed. They're not doing anything special. They don't have dangerous chemicals inside, like you had mentioned for the fire department, so they don't need to be
The-
licensed.
The first time, when Sarah and I discussed it, I thought of it only because they had been my clients up here in the block, just up past Central Bank. I represented a father and son that had a baseball card memorabilia shop.
10th inning?
Why go through, put them through a license? We send the building official out. The minute the application comes in, we send the building official out. We send Matt Manny out. If necessary, we notify the sewer department. So those things, whether they're registered or licensed, they're taken care of in every instance. So we don't have any hazards out there. And that's a question of, some businesses should come before the council.
So, and that's what I want to confirm. What you were saying was that not only will we simplify it, we'll make it registrations instead of licensing, but the clerk will issue them without coming here first
That's
unless
right.
there's a question.
Yes, what I'm proposing is somebody comes in with an application. When they come in with the application, the Sarah and I will work together and make an application fitting for whatever they're seeking. If there is any federal or state licensing or certificates that are required, they have to submit those with their application. Once the completed application comes in, all of them notifies the various department heads, like she does today, and they go out and they do their inspection. Once they come back and they say, everything's fine, a registration goes out. No more putting it on the agenda. And we had a situation where putting stuff on an agenda for a group entitled private. It was listed, it was no longer private.
I'm all for changing that. As long as it's not, and added is a question for both of you. Is this going to add any expense to the businesses by doing it this way? Is it going to reduce it or is it going to keep it the same?
Everything is going to be the same as far as the expense to the business. Just to add to what Al was saying, when you take any of the auto service industry, whether it be a gas station and all, whatever, we're not giving them permission per se to perform that service, right? That's something that they're licensed through the state to do. But however, if they are selling hot dogs, we would be giving them a victualling license.
A liquor license is a,
Right,
yes.
Right,
yeah,
so
Right.
This will also help the process go a little quicker for those businesses.
exactly.
So
So
that-
instead of them waiting, there are things that, and I don't want to get off topic, but there are licenses that do have to come before you
Yeah.
guys, but there's some such as this where we are not licensing the act that they're performing. We're just basically saying, yes, you're here. You can perform it in this zoned area. It's a permitted use. And
And as
You
we
know,
move forward with
having
this,
the inspection.
any of the changes that I'll say Sarah and I are proposing, gotta come to you and you can say, well, wait a minute, that business that you got registration, we think that should come to us. So you're gonna have the say before it becomes in print.
And I just want to, I know you said it won't add any cost. If we're gonna bring those 110 different fees down to 6 categories, there may be some change. I don't want to, so
I don't believe that, looking at the fee structure, I don't think that it would make a difference. So if someone came in today for an automobile business license, what we're calling today a business license, I believe it's the same fee that we're currently charging for the registration. Paula would then ask, are you selling, are you making food? Do you need a victualling license? Do you need, whatever else they might get? They go with
Also
them.
on
And
it,
she's kind of combining them at the current time, so I don't think,
Okay.
and I'll take a closer look at it, but I don't think. it
Also on that question, Mary Beth, anything that is presently in that appendix C before it can be changed, doesn't, it comes before you as a resolution.
Yes.
We removed it from an ordinance. So it, but you, and any item in there, that's why I put as the second part of, that's what's before you tonight, I put that table of uses, because that's, you gotta change, once that's got changed, then you go over to the table, the appendix C, I think it is, and you change the fees.
Yeah, okay.
So I think before I can put it back into the ordinance, I need some guidance.
My opinion is we don't, if we eliminate the 6. And it-
Eliminate any restriction.
Yeah, I would, on the number of vehicles. I would.
Well, if somebody gives me a number, I'll put it in and then you can vote on it.
Well, again, the current ordinance does say 6,
Okay.
right?
It was
Current, no, the
kind of-
current ordinance, and we're not talking about changing, this is
no,
a
but the
discussion.
Current ordinance says it's limited to 6.
Right.
That's what it is at current. And then after the meeting, I added.
Right.
I think Jason mentioned something with 3 bays.
Well,
That
no,
would-
I just
that would
mentioned,
be 12.
regardless of the bays, there could
No,
be
I-
3
no.
bays, but way more parking area, and it doesn't,
understand
and
that.
it doesn't look, it doesn't look a mess.
Yeah,
I
so-
know, I know it's, I think that, I think Councilman
my-
Bourget said it too about using common sense at some points, but it's tough when setting ordinances, you can't, you
My
can't put an
concern-
ordinance for that, so we have
My
to find something.
concern with that is that if you try to go to the size, then we're left in trying to determine how much of that size is taken up by the building,
Yeah.
how much is taken up by this, and I think that would become just, we'd have to have a whole new department to go out and measure.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'll leave it as is,
Well, as is 6.
6 or 4.
No,
Okay.
as is 6.
Oh, as
In
is
the
is
current,
6.
today, it is 6.
6.
Yes.
I personally, because there's too many convolutions that can go with it, I would rather not have a max amount personally. Like I said, if there's a violation, there's other ordinances that it seems to me that we can go after those specific businesses instead of impacting other businesses.
Well, again, is that true?
We'll dig deeper, however, I believe there's been summonses to municipal court before and determined that there isn't. For example, I know there's, from our perspective, that, we've dealt with minimum housing, taking care of unregistered vehicles on private property, bring them to municipal court, have to remove them, whatever the case may be. They have to be, registered, inspected, insured, and all that. There may be a difference on what is in a business zone. I'll have to check into that. But obviously, we haven't found a resolution for the issues that brought this all up yet. It hasn't been successful. So
Well,
I'm
I just don't like to impact other businesses, because again, like I said, with my mechanic, he shares a lot, it's a small lot, and he will sometimes have, like, I'll drop my car off the night before and he's already got 6 cars there.
right. And I don't think the work, and again, I don't think the cars that are being worked on are ever the issue.
And I get that, but again, common sense goes out the window. You tick somebody off, you tick off the right person, and then, they stop filing complaints, and then the town has to act because you have a law, you have an ordinance that says that you have to act on this, you better get down there and do it, otherwise you're gonna make a big deal out of it, and then as Timmy always said, you can sue for anything, so there's always somebody out there willing to pick up a lawsuit, and, it just, I would rather not have a number there, we don't have to deal with that. And we have a specific business with a problem, then you deal with that problem. And if we don't have an ordinance in place that covers such a thing, and we know it's an ongoing issue, create an ordinance that does cover everybody and enforce it equally when the other people violate, if they violate. I just don't like to cause, it's kind of like the state of Rhode Island made a whole bunch of criminals out of people who had, something that was perfectly legal one day, the next day they're felons. I don't agree with that. And I don't think we should do that with an ordinance like this by taking a business that's been running for 20 years this way and it's never been an issue, and then we're gonna pass an ordinance like this, and boom, now they're in violation of an ordinance that was never in violation before.
May I
You
make
don't
this?
agree with
Are you
that.
talking about employee cars as well? Or a car is a car? Is that how you're what you're
Well,
talking?
actually, I think in some cases it's both, but there's also something that says that's where the 4 came from, isn't it? 4 spots, 4 employee spots, or I forget exactly how that worked. Yeah. So the issue about, it's never been a problem before. I think the town manager would tell you that it's,
Let me
This-
make
No,
this.
no, I'm saying with certain businesses.
oh,
It's
I
never
agree
been a
with you.
problem.
I agree with
But
you.
now by passing something where they're limited,
The
now
truth
they're
is,
in
the truth is
violation.
they're in violation already, because it says 6 right now. So it has not been enforced. That's a,
Let me make this suggestion.
And as I said earlier, hold on one second.
we're not looking to, I'm not looking,
As I said earlier, 99% of the businesses
Correct.
work with us. And unfortunately, that 1%, 2% that are not working with us, this is why it ends up on this.
Right, it's always the one bad apple.
Right, but the
You call it.
99% are now gonna be impacted because of one bad apple instead of handling the one bad apple.
Let me make this suggestion. That I prepare the ordinance, that I put in a provision that exempts employees from the number and leave it at 6. Present it to you that way, and then as it comes before you under your discussion on the ordinance itself, you can amend it and we'll go from there. But, I mean, otherwise, we can go on this all night
Right,
long without.
right.
well,
I think it's just gonna cripple the industry in Westwall. That's what I think. And that's what was said to me. So again, I'm not in the auto industry at all. You know, I go down Tyoke Avenue and it
Alright.
starts right there in Ward 4. And I'm their councilman too.
All right.
And they brought all their concerns to me. And what's been said was, let me know if I have to go to the meeting.
What I-
So
what I-
what you're gonna have is,
What I'm saying to you is I'll present the ordinance and then you can make your amendments to it. And I don't know how else you can do. Go about it,
are you
'cause
gonna
we-
present it with 6
I'm gonna
and 4
present
like
it,
you had it?
I'm gonna present it. Removing employees' cars from the total number and present it with 6. And then once it gets before you, you can amend. I gotta get something before you.
Right, I mean, it's just gonna be the same discussion as a first reading.
Well,
right, so,
I'm not,
so
I'll tell you
maybe
right
we're
now, I'm
not,
not.
so,
for it.
so
at the
maybe.
first reading, you'll make motions to amend it.
So maybe there needs to be more discussion about what that ordinance that you bring forward is gonna look like.
I think so.
Yeah,
Alright.
so that's a, because I agree with you, you're gonna chase our tails, so.
It's gonna
Yes.
come into, my guess is gonna be a packed house, and it's gonna be yelling and screaming. And I'm trying to prevent that.
All right, what I'll do is I'll take what I presented tonight. I'll highlight what I just said, the 6 and the employees, and send it back to you. And make the changes all the way through for discussion.
I still have some other questions, other parts of this ordinance as well. Under 301 definitions, says new and used motor vehicle dealer means every person or business entity which sells, solicits, or advertises the sale of a new and or used motor vehicle. That mean I can't sell my truck? You put every person, that's singular. You know, so everybody who advertises on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or just puts a sign in their window and parks it out on a main road.
I'll work on the language.
Yeah, because again, I know common sense is supposed to dictate. But as I said earlier, when you have a
That lang-
lawyer who's also a politician and
that
questioning what the
language-
word is means,
That
anything
lang-
could go up for
that language
arguments.
comes from the state statute.
Yeah, well, it doesn't- under the towing companies, 303, you put enclosed and secure area on the premises. Again, I know what you mean by that. In your memo, you explained it better. I think it probably should, if we're gonna put it in here, it should be defined that way, because somebody could say enclosed means it has to be in a building, not just a fenced area. You know, just to make it as clear as possible, so we don't run into any foolish arguments later on. And just a question as to under B3, under towing companies, it says automotive rentals as provided for in section 10-302, provided however that such rentals shall be to the person for whom the towing service was rendered. Why just that way.
Which section is that?
That's under towing, 303.
Oh. Because I was thinking of the towing company having the cars on the lot for the people they towed. That was as opposed to it becoming a parking lot.
Yeah, so you're saying only for the person that was, so you can't just have a bunch of cars there to rent to anybody that shows up.
That
So
comes,
for instance, I know auto body shops have like most of them have 3 to 4 rentals on site. Sometimes they use a car dealership, but they'll have 3 to 4 rentals on site saying, the like.
Yeah.
They give it to a customer whose car's gonna be there for a while or whatever.
yeah, most automobile dealers have rentals for their customers, and that's all I was thinking of. If they want to go into the rental business, we got a provision for that.
I think so, this is why that was written in that way,
Yeah.
so. Under automotive junkyard, 304, definitions, 1, it says a place where one or more unserviceable, discarded, or worn out junk motor vehicle or bodies. Again, 1 or more. Alan has a very nice old Mustang sitting in his driveway, but it's still undrivable, and it's,
State statute.
right, but 1 or more, I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't consider that a junkyard, it's.
10? I mean, I copied the state statute.
Well, if it's 1 and it's not registered, I still wouldn't consider it a junkyard, so.
Want to increase the number to 10?
I think it should be more than 1. I mean, what number it is, I don't know, it's just, but
How
like, my question was why this low
How
number, you
about
answered
more,
it,
how
you
about
answered
more,
by saying it came off state
how
statute.
about more than one?
More than 1?
Language is saying more than one.
That one's been answered, and that's it. And the second ordinance, I don't have a problem with. I like it. That one there clears things up to me a lot for the resident and for us and for the clerk's office.
Any other questions from the council for Al?
When are you going? Sorry, when are you going to bring this back to us? Is going to
Next
be the
meeting.
next meeting?
You have it, you have my comments on it by the beginning of next week. And Sarah will put it down for discussion for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get it out so you can see it within a couple of days.
Thank you, Al. Alan, Sue.
Point of order, Mr. Goslin. Okay, the last council meeting, Mrs. Williamson presided over it. And she asked for public comment. 2 town employees came up, commented, and when I attempted to speak, when she had said public comment, I was told, no, I wasn't allowed. They were town employees. Okay, so I sat down and waited for public comment. At this meeting, you've allowed public comment during the issues. At first, I thought it was just for ordinances, and then you've had other ones. So I had some input that I wanted to provide to you,
Alan,
and you told me to sit down.
so the only thing.
So wait, hold on, let me finish.
No,
I would
someone-
like, I gave a point of order and I have the floor, sir. Okay?
Hey, Alan,
I would like this council to issue some type of directive as to when the public may or may not comment. That's all I want,
I'm gonna-
consistency.
let me-
Thank you.
Let me give you that. So the last things I let anybody speak on were all ordinances and licenses. So everything else is at public comment. Licenses and ordinances. Those are the only things that I let anybody speak on tonight. Now, if a department head's here for a situation and I need to ask Kristen, what's it going to cost? Where's the money going to come from? I expect her to be able to answer that question. If the chief is up here giving us an example of what he wants to buy, And I have to ask Kristen, or if I have to get something from Jeff, as town employees, they have the right to come up as their department heads to tell us what they're working on. So again, huh? That's the attorney. He's representing the project. It's a request to move forward as a presentation from Rock's Market.
Okay, I will wait, stand by. It's gonna be a long meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Approval of request from the town manager for sale of surplus vehicles on Gov Deals.
Move approval of request.
Second.
Mark?
So it's been a while since we've had a surplus sale. So I sent a memo that indicated 16 items that range a majority from DPW equipment, four police vehicles, 3 wastewater, and 1 fire piece of equipment that we're looking to put on Gov Deals. One of the items will have a pretty significant minimum bid. In addition to that, I just wanted that, as required, I'd said I'd try to do quarterly updates, but since we haven't sold much in fiscal '23, it's only been 3 Ford Crown Victorias that were sold from the early 2000s that netted us $3,000 to date for this fiscal year.
Any questions for Mark?
Mark, what happens if we don't sell them? If there's some on this list that we don't sell, what happens? Junk them?
Essentially, I mean, we haven't had that happen yet. Surprisingly, we're making significantly more return on our investment than we used to. Those police cars used to go away for, $200-300, and these, went away for $675, and $1,600. So yes, essentially, if they go unsold, the pricing can be dropped if there was a minimum set or junked.
Okay. So where does the money go when the money comes in and we sell it?
So that's why we identify those departments. They go back into essentially their capital reserves. So when they need replacement equipment, we can reduce the amount that we're taking from current capital or a general fund budget account.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions for Mark? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Approval of request from the fire chief for acceptance to FEMA assistance to firefighters grant.
Move approval of the grant.
Second.
Moving second, Chief?
Good evening. So the West Warwick Fire Department has been applying for a ladder truck for several years. We've been fortunate enough this year to been awarded a grant for $991,000. It's a 10% match, so it would be $901,000 from the federal government. We have to come up with $90,000. We're gonna have to come up with more than $90,000 to get a ladder. We did get a committee together and we did speak with 3 manufacturers. Those 3 manufacturers gave us an idea of a price between $1.75 million to $2.2 million for a new tower ladder. The build time on these are between 2 years and 1 month and 2 years and 5 months. So after we go through the process and actually have an agreement, that's when that clock would stop. So right now, we have a 30-day window to accept the FEMA grant. And that's what I'm asking for your approval to do.
We would be crazy not to accept it, but secondly, it's something that's lasted 20, 25, 30 years. So if we get a new truck, it's a one-time expense for at least 20 years anyway, hopefully.
Yeah.
I know the old ladder had some frame issues, but that was because of the model and everything else. But I think this is a good opportunity. I mean, you're talking almost 80% is paid for,
So, well, not quite 80%,
Well,
but.
Half.
No, I'm sorry.
Half.
You said you
Half
needed
of
It's in the
1.2
area of
million.
half.
I'm sorry, I
but-
misheard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need a little more than 90,000.
Yeah. So we do, we have 2 revenues. We have some money left in our apparatus replacement fund to use as a down payment. We have a lease that we figured out payments on that we can get into the area we need to be in order to do that.
And that was gonna be my question, the 90,000, where is that coming from? Is it coming like right out of our money? or
No,
is it
so
coming out of
that'll
our
come
own
from the
budget?
apparatus replacement
Okay.
plan. Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll look maybe to get some opera if we can. Opera cannot be used as a match for FEMA.
Right.
Okay, but we can get the match from that, maybe a little bit from that and finance, the rest. And it will fit into a sustainable apparatus plan.
If this agreement is signed, I know it's kind of separate and apart, but does that help lock us into a price now?
Yeah,
Whereas
so
we don't,
two of the three manufacturers guaranteed, once we sign, that they're building into their price, and obviously those are the two that are 2.2 million. They're building in 10% per year over the next 2 years in anticipated increases in resources.
10%.
Those are the discussions that are going on.
So
Right.
if we're locked in, but with that 10%, and that's not gonna change at all, right? So.
No,
if
once
they
we
turn around
sign,
and-
that's the price.
That's the
So when they
price.
gave us that price, that's built into that price already.
Okay, all right, because if not, I was gonna see is there an out written in? You know,
So,
if it goes
well-
above this, then we can get out and not be held, accountable to any financial aspect of the whole thing, but we're locked, we're good.
It'll be an agreement. So if they tried to go above that at some point in the future, we'd be able to do that.
What do you do with the other truck?
It's on that.
It's on the list, is it?
I
Okay,
don't know if you noticed that's the
Yeah.
that's
truck.
the one on the list.
Yeah, we had a problem finding the title to actually get it on there, so it's on there now.
So you'll be coming before the council in 20 years?
No,
Close
no,
enough.
we will, once we come to an agreement and, just so I know, we belong to the Houston Galveston, Area Committee, which is a national buying consortium, that gets the best deal from trucks. So that's one avenue we have. The Mass Fire Chiefs also have a master price agreement, with fire apparatus. So we have two different sources like that. We're trying now to identify what meets our needs and fiscally is responsible. Okay, each of these, we're looking at mid-mount ladders. Each of those ladders have different capabilities, different lifting, different extensions and capacities at those different extensions. So, those are all things that we're taking into consideration.
So if you need a ladder to clean the gutters. Opportunity.
So, and we will, I don't know if you're asking about the two other used ladders that we did purchase, okay?
Yep.
We anticipate those being able to last, we're hoping, them to last 5 years. But, we will be able to get rid of one of those, in the future.
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Consideration of Rhode Island ethics training for all West Warwick elected officials and board and commission members.
I put this on the agenda, because I spoke with Lynn at the Rhode Island Ethics Board, and she said typically they come out to cities and towns, and they'll give, it's a 1-hour workshop training. And I think, given the fact about, recusals, especially up here, just focusing up here on the council. I know since I've been on the council, there's many different reasons I've had to recuse myself. Questions where I did, and I really feel I didn't have to. I know Councilman Messier, at this point, any type of business that comes up in West Warwick, he's recused himself because he wants to be safe.
Yeah.
And so, Dave, I know you have, Mary Beth doing a business. I mean, I just think it's time where we can, it's a training for all.
They've been here.
They have been.
They've been here since Mary Beth.
Yeah, and it's all, and
Yeah, I
and
missed
you're,
that
and you're
on,
right.
so-
I always rather, or on this.
The only one I don't think was on was Mar at the time.
I don't remember.
But they were here, they did a 1-hour training with
Gave
us.
us this and
And they
Yeah.
gave us the documents and then, but you also, Sarah gets, and again, I don't mind.
Yeah, there was the AG. So it wasn't the Rhode Island Ethics
The
Commission.
Rhode Island Attorney General came in to discuss access to public records.
Yeah,
and
that I
meetings.
I remember.
I don't think the Ethics Commission is.
No,
ever-
the
I don't-
Ethics
no.
Commission wasn't.
Yeah.
But they gave us the magazine.
But this is, so this is something she
Yeah.
said, this lady, her name is Lynn Radish, she comes out and she does the training. She tries to answer any questions we may have by doing the training.
Hmm.
So how's it done?
She,
Like a workshop or?
well, what she said is she comes out and she asked how many people would be here, and I couldn't tell her. So what she suggested was that it's a sign off. And we do a sign, probably through the clerk's office, I would guess, a sign up sheet as to who would attend. If there was an overwhelming amount, I mean, obviously people could attend by Zoom. It's up to us how
Are
we
we
want to work
allowed,
that.
are we allowed to all be here present for that? Was that, it's
Zoom
not,
scheduled
I just want to make sure
So,
it's not,
and-
it's not an
so
open
she
meeting.
said, so
Okay.
this is what her suggestion was, to come in once, that
Ethics
all,
violation, maybe
all
violation.
elected officials and appointees to boards and commissions be here and to have it open to the public. She made it very clear that it's not a gripe session. It's a training, and we have the ability to answer questions, to ask questions to her. However, she should be able to cover any question that we may have.
They used to actually,
We went to
well,
one.
I did it twice, both times when my first two times I got elected, the Hassenfeld Institute used to do these
I
new,
went
like,
Right.
I know we went to the first one together. But I don't know, since COVID, I don't know if they just don't do them anymore.
That's right.
They're back to in-person training.
It was
she-
very,
so
it
what
was
she
very
did-
helpful, and the thing is, what we learn is that some of these things are changing all the time. We talked about it yesterday, now that we're doing Zoom, like there's all sorts of different rules that, they're definitely helpful. And like I said, I'll always err on the side of caution and recuse myself, even if I'm not sure, because I'd rather take the chance. I've called, I know you've called them for multiple things, and I'll always err on the side of caution, and
So she gave we looked at 3 dates. I wanted to bring it up to the council to see if this, we could choose these dates. If not, we can get back to her. But April 25th, May 2nd, and May 16th. So figuring it being an hour, I mean, my suggestion is like a 6 to 7 meeting. And then we start the council meeting after the
what
training.
was the
So
second
it's
date?
on the same night. April 25, May 2nd, and May 16th.
What day,
They're all
those are all Tuesdays?
Tuesday
Okay,
nights.
Okay, all right.
So we would be
We
here.
do have May,
Financial town
financial
meeting.
town meeting.
Right.
Okay, so
So
that would
not
be.
that one, scratch that one.
Well, that'd be a perfect place. for
Actually,
it.
maybe it would be a better
Yeah.
place for
Yeah,
it,
yeah, that-
in the auditorium,
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just throwing out dates.
Time is
so-
the
but it
town-
might be.
Is the town financial meeting at 6 usually?
It's a good idea.
Maybe it's a
'Cause
better
then we don't have
place,
to look,
because
we
this would
don't-
not, this would not be big enough.
And it's an hour?
Maybe, I don't know.
And there's no Zoom,
Jason,
there's no
you
there's
said
no
it's
Zoom with the auditorium, correct?
an hour long? Yeah, so
she
if we
said she
got,
limits it to an hour.
but we'd have to get, like, is the town financial meetings time set by ordinance or just that night? No, but I'm just saying, if we said that our session was at 5 and the town financial meeting started at 6:30, it would give half, I mean,
And who would be responsible for letting all the boards, committees?
That would be Sarah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
so that's
You
it.
did offer it to us, and you talked about it last year, I think, sometime.
Zoom meetings.
Yeah, the 16th sounds like it would work then if we could do if we could do a 5.
Yeah, but 5 o'clock might be tough for a lot of people who got to work. I know, like Dave was
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard for him to get here for 6.
Things are changing too. It's very hard to get here. for
You know,
six.
I mean, we've all been to the financial town meeting with the 10 people in the audience,
Well, I mean,
and it lasts about 20 minutes.
yeah, I mean, I guess this is 7:30 too late
Like the
to
good old days.
Is 7:30 too late to start, is 7:30 too late to start the town financial meeting if we set this at 6?
I don't, we're all
No,
out.
Like you
and
said,
the-
we're
and
in
the
and
school
out.
committee's there already, so.
That makes
that's
sense.
a,
That makes sense. for
So
everybody.
maybe 6 o'clock on the 16th, tentatively?
on.
Makes sense.
Did she give you times? How long were the dates?
So we decide tonight that to be the 16th.
Did she give you times as well as dates?
Yeah, well, she asked me about the time, so we
Okay.
figured on like a 6 o'clock would be the
All
best.
I asked that planning and zoning be exempted from that because they're in the process right now of setting up the mandatory planning and zoning education program that is being put on by the planning and
I zoning. don't think experts. anybody's gonna be forced to go. It's just gonna be invited.
Yeah.
So nobody's gonna be forced to go. It's just an invitation. If they choose to go, they choose to go. If they choose not to, then they choose not to.
It used to be at 7. We moved it to 6.
Yeah, it's always just the Tuesday before the town financial meeting is what the ordinance states, correct?
No.
No?
Tuesday before the,
I'm sorry, I'm,
That's the
yeah,
vote.
the all-day vote, all-day
I
referendum.
meant,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
totally different.
So we're looking at the
So,
16th.
16th at 6 to 7 and the financial town meeting at 7,
Has to be
because that's
2
gonna
days.
force us to be done in an hour, like she wants to be done in an hour, so.
No, I meant-
You may have the number, but I'll give you that.
So the invitation is going to go to all elected officials and all appointed officials.
Right. And it's open to the public. So it's, but the auditorium is big enough. I don't see us.
She's,
Yeah,
she's from Oswara,
yeah.
Lynn Marin.
Oh, okay.
Small world. Typical world. Thank you, Jay.
Consideration of request from Councilman Lichardi for a workshop with the Everything Ice Company regarding the ice chillers for the ice rink.
So I brought this forward only because I'll give you a little bit of the history. Now, I don't know everything ice. I don't know hockey. I don't skate. I have nothing, no dog in the race here at all. But when this first got brought to us, Everything Ice representative sent us an email. And that was the night we were supposed to vote on this. And I looked at this at 4:45, read the email. I called them because it was an email that was sent and I had questions on it and we had to vote on it. So they didn't answer. That same night, you had sent an email to you. We didn't get it. So I was gonna bring that up at the meeting anyway. We don't know anything that's going on. We just got the email. Everything Ice did make contact with me. He called me back the next week. Again, something that was going to, eventually it's going to come up that we need the chiller. We're going to have to vote on this. I don't feel comfortable voting on this because I don't know about it. So it's not like it's a $1,000 item. This is $500,000, $750,000 item that we're gonna have to vote on. I'm not gonna pick on Mark, but I think Mark and I could not have a conversation about an ice chiller. And that's gonna come before us. So in the other conversation I had with John Knoplock of Everything Ice, he was explaining to me about his product. Again, over the phone, it's still Greek to me. He then asked, would it be beneficial if we came up from Pennsylvania and came before the council and gave us a tutorial or a mini workshop about our product? And I think that's a good idea. I think it educates all of us. I'm not looking to block the other company. I forget who the other company is. But if we're gonna spend this amount of money somewhere on some product, I really think that we need to be educated on. And that's why I put it on.
So I agree. Can't speak intelligently on the specifics. So a lot of this going through this project was kind of a lesson learned for many of us. So we've taken a giant step back and engaged our subcontracted town engineer and his mechanical engineer
Yeah.
to review the entire.
Yeah. No, it's out. Yeah, there's some sort of fire right there.
Oh, but somebody's backyard,
Maybe
big one, but,
roasting some marshmallows.
On
Okay.
West Warwick Town Council, we have a fire on Factory Street.
It's not the sun, yeah.
See it?
Yeah, you see it comes up every once in a while.
It's somebody's yard.
The big one, if it's somebody's yard,
Yeah, that's pretty big.
right out there. Oh, it just went down.
It looks like it's on the other side of the street.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, but that's what it looks like from up behind there, in the woods.
If it gets bigger, we'll let you know. We both noticed at the same time.
Yeah,
too.
I'm like,
I
wait
saw
a minute.
both you just like.
Well, yeah.
So Jay.
Mark's up.
So again, a giant lesson learned, that obviously this was something put together with the best intentions, thinking you're doing the right thing, but learn that it's way more complex than we're locally able to handle. So we've engaged Jeremiah and his mechanical engineer to go through it. We're also engaging a consultant that the trust uses that specializes in that. So we'll engage them on a consulting basis to review the specs that we're putting forward, their expectations and our procurement policies to make sure it can go. And they're also offered the consulting firm to assess the bids that come in and help us speak the language more or less. So that's kind of our process going forward. We're hoping to have that very soon. I wasn't in town hall today, so I didn't engage the consultant yet, perhaps tomorrow. So that will hopefully take care of that. I mean, personally, I'd be hesitant to, at this stage, engage one of the companies that would bid just on the perception at this stage that could be questioned. I know that kind of came up in the first one because our maintenance contractor that does their best to maintain what we have now was a bidder. So just out of it, and that could be questioned. So out of my recommendation, out of abundance of caution, I don't know if I recommend that at this stage, but
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah,
Is
I-
once somebody put a bid in, and I know we have questions, well, we as a council have directed the town manager prior to your item on the agenda to get a consultant and figure it out from there. I think we need to continue moving forward with the consultant and let them come back to us with the
What is this
report.
all for? Consultant,
I'm sorry, the consultant?
the engineer and everything, what is this for?
Engineer is our hourly rate, depending on how much he works for us. The consultant would be $4,500.
And
Obviously,
that's-
like you
that's my only
mentioned,
concern,
for
is
an $800,000
bringing somebody else in.
investment.
There's other issues too with the way, yeah, not just who brought the bid in, but who wrote the bid the last time or who had partaken of writing the bid. So it's kind of like the same thing. So, I want to make sure when we make the decision that we have the information that we need. So I don't know if maybe instead of everything else coming in and doing it, consultant as part of
Right.
his.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a better answer than
they
having
supply
someone who's gonna
reports
bid on it.
based on the
The
different
rebid, though.
stages, so
The bid
they
is-
can share that. I'm sure they're willing to come.
The bid isn't tainted, that's why I brought it up, the bid isn't tainted, the bid is done.
Well,
They've
but
already-
I think. didn't
We
they-
haven't accepted or
Any-
approved or
any
moved forward
bids.
at all.
Right. It was tabled. There was no action taken, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't,
Yeah.
it was just a last.
And that's where we heard about new parts, used parts and all that. So
A lot of puzzles.
yes. But I would agree that if we're engaging a consultant anyway, they should be able to educate us, I hope, as to what we should be looking for or what we need.
Any other comment on that? Thank you, Jay.
Consideration of additional senior tax break for the fiscal year 2024 budget.
So I put this one on the agenda as well, and I know we talked about this last night, and it's difficult because we're talking about the budget and we're talking this at a council meeting, and there's some moving parts to this. But Sal, we had a conversation, and Sal can go over more about the procedure with this. So we can go, so I can talk about it further.
Good evening. South Sakosha Tax Assessor, Town of West Warwick. I think the first thing we need to know is any change that you make to any of the ordinance, you need enabling legislation. I don't believe you could open it up to anyone new because there was a statutory deadline to apply for an exemption this past March 15th. I don't know if anything new could extend that for just this year, depending on the type of change you were thinking of making. Currently, our current ordinance for seniors was set at $10,000. At the time that it was set, with the tax rate, it equaled $258 in tax money. There is a state ordinance that says that exemptions cannot be less when you go through a revaluation cycle, because we have a change in values and a change in rate. So that $10,000 this year is now $14,000.
Ask what?
Right, which equals the 258 on the 22 tax roll. It would go up by approximately $7 or $8 per person with the increase, the proposed tax rate increase we have this year. So people would be, I mean, it's not doubling it, but they would be, it'd go from 258 to, I think, 265 without doing anything this year. As noted, that exemption is worth in value to over 26 million in value. At the current tax rate, it was approximately $475,000 in the budget that comes off the top.
So after we spoke, Sal, I called Pat Serpa because obviously she represents West Warwick very well. She's for seniors. I asked her because she would be the one that would have to present this. You said either a senator or a state rep. So I called Pat. She's on board very happily to do this if the council agrees that we were going to, I guess, do more for the seniors, however you want to call it. So that's why I put this on this agenda for the council, for us to make a decision. So if this is the case and we can do it, she would be gladly able to do that for us.
Now, that was only one of the exemptions. That's just, if you're 65, you live in a owner occupied dwelling, and it doesn't matter whether it's a commercial residential house, 2, 3, 4, 5 family house, or a condominium, you're able to get that exemption as long as you live in the property. It's a lot of money if you wanted to double it.
Well, I just,
Or to find the money in the budget.
right, no, I
or to
understand
increase.
that, but you gotta
We-
start, you have to start
somewhere.
somewhere.
Okay, we also have, which most people are not taking advantage of, is we call it, in our language, the variable exemption, where that one is tied into income
That's what you sent us.
of the people. I sent you today the entire state.
Right, but ours is in there.
Ours is in there, right. There is our income in there. Personally, I think the income requirements are very draconian. I mean, the bottom level was $15,000. How someone can own a house, even if you have no mortgage, on $15,000 a year is beyond me. Just when you take in food, utilities and things like that.
That's
Taxable owner
fair.
in West Warwick. is
Right.
only
That's the question.
quarter of
So,
it easily.
for
That-
instance, Sal, what you're saying is right now, a senior exemption, let's just say my mother and I own a house together. She lives there, but my name's on it. Again, she lives in Coventry, by the way, so. But if she could take care of, she can file for all those exemptions because half her name's on the house. So that's how that could happen. Like, I know, some individuals that get $1,325 a month times 12 months. That's that's $15,500 and they own the house.
Yes.
But it's because there's two people owning it. Now if that house was in West Warwick, like you said, she could actually apply for that. So that's how
Right.
that's
Now,
how
not-
that can happen.
that person is getting
But yet,
375.
I could be paying for everything.
Yes. Oh, yes, yeah.
That's how that happens.
Right, so those variable exemptions, there are approximately 75 people that apply for. And it's costing the town $22,000 in tax dollars. So no one takes advantage of that. I'm not sure if it's tied into, because it's good, originally it was for single families. Maybe if you open it up to something else or increase some of the relief you're getting in the categories. And the categories are 100, 190, 230, 280, and 3 change. At a top level, the most you can make out of any of them is $35,000 a year.
But this can't be done without going through the state, correct?
That's right, right. You
that's-
make any
that's the
changes
first
in any of
part.
those numbers, the amount of money, the amount of income, you need that enabling legislation.
So that's why I put this on for discussion. So that we have a first step.
I know it's in the back.
So that we have a first step to see if we want to go this route, or what the numbers would be, what we'd have to come up with. And I threw out doubling it last night. It's just a figure. You know, that can be toned down, we can add it up, I mean, whatever it is.
But it's something where, it's, time is of the essence.
Right.
If you're gonna do something for this year, it's gotta be done within, in the next meeting or two. I mean, you can wait for state legislation to go, but you'd have to make
Right.
sure it gets passed.
Representative Serpa say it's too late for this year? Or she said it's still possible?
Representative Serpa didn't know anything about this. And what she told me was, I believe you can do this.
I think the
As-
state could.
Right, and I'm
get it
sure
done
that-
Right now, yes.
Right. So she said, get to the council, put it on the agenda and see where it goes from here. And that's how we left it.
The exemption that already existed, nobody seems to take advantage of with the financial exemptions. Is there like a time limit for people to apply for that, or is that throughout the year that they can apply?
March 15th is
Yeah.
a deadline for any exemption.
And actually, that's generous compared to most of the cities and towns. I think I saw a lot of January 31st.
January 31st is the statutory deadline.
Yeah.
And then you are able to file for an extension until March 15th. Every assessor extends it automatically.
Maybe we should ask Manny, because I'm sure he's got a lot of contact information for a lot of the elderly in town, to reach out to them in some form or fashion. I don't know how many of them have emails, just to make them aware of this, so maybe they will take advantage of it. And we can help some of the seniors that way, as well.
And now, here we are, it's March 21st.
Right.
Past the deadline.
Right, past
So
the
any new
deadline for this year,
people,
but it gives them plenty of time to start, even if they put their paperwork in now for next year, I mean. it's-
people
it's-
call up, we tell them, we keep a list to mail them out applications. and-
Well, I know Manny last night said most of the people he deals with,
Live
they
in
live in
housing.
housing
Right.
already. But when Manny has his, I know Representative Norrie is involved with Manny with doing like informational,
Right.
having National Grid, Kent County Water. Maybe we add you to that day of, and given the residents who are there, the seniors who come there, you have that information for them, handouts, and it tells them, hey, you got to apply for this. And now they're applying, they get it in before March 15th for next year, and at least they know, because some people don't even know, like, they think, all right, somebody might turn 65 today, I'm exempt. Well, they come in, they fill it out, and they don't understand it already passed, but you're good for next year.
Coventry had a little more comprehensive exemption similar to that. They had a few more steps involved. I think it went up to 50,000, I think, instead of the 35,000. This ordinance goes back, I think, to like around the year 2000, so it's at least 20 something years old. Incomes and things have changed a lot in that.
We
That 20 years.
changed the senior exemption.
This,
We added a little more money to it a couple years ago. I want to say 6 to 8 years ago.
it just before, I think it was when Christine was here.
And I remember because JP Millet came up to me and thanked me for his reduction or whatever. It wasn't, I do remember, but it wasn't that long, because it wasn't. It was changed. So, wasn't that long ago.
And that's the only exemption we have, the elderly one that's based on the value. All the other ones are dollar amounts that haven't been changed in
And so,
years also.
Jay, I'll just bring you up to speed. I remember at that year, Councilman Giroux, the sponsor for that, but, obviously the council supported it. And then we talked about, okay, we just did for the seniors, now what are we gonna do for the veterans? And we've never done anything more per se for the veterans. So, that may come up again also.
Sure.
We did do for the seniors. Now Some are asking, what are we gonna
Yeah,
do? for
They're
veterans?
both on level playing field right now. They both get the same amount.
But on this agenda, like this item, what is everybody's thought process?
Can I just make two suggestions? First and foremost, you want to go forward with this. Because you put the FY 2024, you might want to add in future annual town budgets. Also, as far as the legislation with Representative Serpa, you might want to talk about the issue of retroactivity versus a prospective break in taxes, because General Assembly normally is not going to address retroactivity, especially since our financial town meeting is going to be in 56 days, and they may not even have adjourned by that point in time. So you just might have to work out a little bit of the logistics. So it may actually start for FY 25, as you were talking about earlier, versus FY 24.
And again, so if we go forward, now I have ideas, you have ideas, and Mark, I think, has ideas, Mary Beth, Jay. We'll have a difference of opinions on how we want to do this. If we move forward with enable legislation, does that restrict us? So for instance, I'll throw it out there. I want to put, this is a tiered income level. This is what you get. Because I saw a couple of towns that are doing that. You know, if we go for enable legislation, does that restrict us from designing?
Does it have to be specific
Do we-
as to what we?
yes.
If I may, you have a lot of latitude as long as you're not violating any state law or any rules or regulations on the division of taxation. So much like the different properties that were changed into 6 categories years ago. For example, there used to be one tax for an owner or non-owner occupied 2-family. That changed. So if the town comes in and says, yes, we want to be able to do this based, say, on revenue alone, and then do a 3-tiered system, you could do that. But you may face some opposition, but you're going to be able to testify anyway when the bill comes before the appropriate committee to address why you need that. So-
But the question is, do you have to have a specific amount in that
As
legislation?
long as you don't exceed it. So-
Right.
So what you're usually going for with the state is,
You might talk about a percentage.
you might want
versus-
to double,
right,
All right.
Versus
ask
a
for
dollar
twice
amount.
as much, but at our level, we only ask for what we want, but that gives us room in the future to increase it without having to go with enabling legislation again,
So the legislation would say up,
up
To a
to,
certain
up
amount.
to
up to
double,
50,000
yeah,
or
whatever
whatever, or
it is.
something.
Yes, okay.
I believe in Cranston, just as I left, they had increased the veteran total disability exemption to 250,000. But they did it
No,
over a 5-year period where they went 50,000 a year, so that way it wasn't a big hit. And a lot of people, because of that.
Just to clarify what you were just saying, Tim, the chances of us getting something in place for this coming fiscal year is probably not going to happen.
No, I think you could do that. I don't think you're going to be able to address fiscal year 2024 because of the way the financial town meeting works, and it's going to pass, goes into effect on July 1st. If the General Assembly takes up the bill and passes it, I just think it'd be difficult to pass it retroactively for FY 24. You're probably going to get FY 25 and then into the
And
future.
that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, we could still get something in place. but it
Absolutely.
Probably just won't.
won't impact this year's
the same.
budget.
Okay,
Right.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
just wanted
plus,
to have
by
that
the
clear
time
in my
they
head.
pass it, I mean, we're not at for a budget purposes.
but then again, if you've got,
We're not sure on what the
um,
amounts would be.
whatever you're using for your budget numbers, I mean, it's obviously going to be addressed. But again, the more, if the 3-tiered passes, talking about a phase in, if people should be notified that they shouldn't expect to get 100% of what they're looking for the following year because it's going to be phased in. But that's all part of the legislation.
So as of right now, how many seniors take advantage of the 65?
The 258.
258,
You just said it's 457.
so it was 26 million in value.
Yeah.
So 26 million divided by 14,000.
Yeah.
It's a number of people.
Can't do that in your head.
Yeah.
Choose off.
Maybe at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I couldn't do it no matter what time of the day it was, so.
It's around 1,900. Out of the 7,000 single family, 2-family condos that we had, so 2/7, yeah. Quite a few.
What's the council's appetite?
I think we should do something for the seniors. I think it's just getting more and more out of control. Seniors are usually on a fixed budget. But I do agree with having it set with the, not the archaic numbers we have now, like Sal was saying, but an income bracket. That has to play into it.
Yeah, I think for sure, it has to be, because not every senior is created equally. I think that definitely has to be some income requirement, whatever that number. I mean, I don't know what number we would necessarily,
Probably not 250,000.
No.
Just saying, yeah.
you know, I think there would have to be some,
It's like my phone.
again, I don't know the number, but yeah, because now if with that income requirement, would that affect people that are under 65 if we did that?
It's usually totally disabled. Plus
65 and over.
865 or over.
And if we could, can we tie the veterans into that whole thing also? A veteran, disabled, or
If
65?
you want
over?
to, if you want to change the veteran number, you could. do
If
that at the same-
if I may, and I don't mean to
It's more
beat a
money.
dead horse, but the veterans issue is not before you guys today, so it wouldn't be proper, but
That's So we just gotta figure out how we want to word the legislation.
I mean, you either take the existing ordinance that we have and change the numbers there, or come up with something, add to it. Change it.
Again,
I think Jay's just looked for the council to say,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's-
to
it's
move
not-
forward, so.
I mean, I think
yeah, but I just don't want
Wanna keep it
the
simple.
legislation to come out saying, all of a sudden, it looks like we're gonna double it, and all of a sudden, that's the rumor going around the
Yeah,
town.
Right. No, and that's
We
why.
can't,
no.
we can't afford to
But
double it.
I don't
mean,
think he's actually
this
looking
year.
for a
we can
number,
do
But it's
something this year
Wait.
and maybe increase it for
Well,
next
no,
year.
he's saying we can't.
You're not gonna
The
be able to do it for
legislation-
FY24.
The enabling legislation won't.
You're running out of time.
So then the question becomes, do we take our time, have a workshop and make sure what we
Yeah,
put in
I think
is
it's a great
correct?
I was just gonna say.
Not rush to put
But I don't
something in
just-
right now. So
I
have a
just don't-
I
workshop.
think Kristen would have some comments.
But what I don't want to do though, is I
Yeah.
don't want to put it off.
Right.
Like some things are done and all of a sudden we're back next January, February, and
But
what do we do
If you
now?
want to get it done, I would say now's the time to do it, even though it won't take effect for another year.
Right.
Because
But
they're in session,
And there's no
you've got
rush.
the ideas.
We don't have to rush anything. It's not like we have a deadline of financial town meetings in
No,
56
that's
days.
right.
So we have to hurry up and get this done. It's, we can get it done right.
November of this year anyway for the next session.
So let's wait. Let's wait till after the summer, after the budget.
I wouldn't,
Want the legislation to go through now.
no, I don't.
We can wait.
I think we want to make sure we
But-
know what we want the
right,
legislation
to
to
say,
say,
yes.
because it's not going to happen this year anyway. So why rush
So
into
what's
it?
what's
no,
the
no,
time?
all I'm saying is that if you have your workshop in the next 30, 60 days, because the House and Senate's not going to adjourn, and let's say you come up with legislation that's what you want because of the workshop. My suggestion is you have Representative Serpa still file it for this year. Probably not going to go anywhere, but it's going to come up automatically again in November for the following General Assembly year. So it's already going to be there.
Okay.
You know
I'm
what I
okay
mean?
with that. I would suggest we wait until the financial town meeting is over, so there's no confusion that
Right,
has
no, right.
nothing to do with
And
this.
then have a workshop after. the
That's
financial
correct,
town meeting.
correct.
Bills get filed all the time with the same rationale that it may
It
not be
did, it got
heard,
put on a list from last year.
may not be heard this year,
Doesn't
but
happen.
it's going to be,
You know.
it's going to start up again once January hits for next year.
Okay.
And then it's up to obviously Rep. Serpa and Senator Burke to follow it, make sure it gets filed.
You need to talk to Senator Burke, or you want us to?
Something like this, they jump over, you get whoever our other representatives are jumping on it too.
But
You and I-
it's not right yet.
Thank you, Sal.
Thanks, Al.
Consideration of $250 processing fee for concealed carry permits.
So I had this put on the agenda. In the last year, I had 3 different constituents, two live in my ward, one lives outside my ward, asked me about this $250 fee. And I spoke with Chief Levine. He did some research. I don't know if he has anything he wants to share tonight. And then Mark and I sat down together and we had a meeting, and my thought on this is $250 is just a lot of money. You know, we call ourselves a distressed community because we are a distressed community, and it's just a lot of money for people who have a right to carry, to be able to carry, on top of the cost of the weapon, the training, and all that other stuff that goes along with it. So I'm asking the council, I personally think it should be eliminated. That's my personal opinion. But to at least lower it down to a more reasonable amount. So the residents of this town can, get a carry permit if they pass everything they're supposed to pass without having to pay that extra. And it's actually $290 because they still have to pay the $40 required by state law for the physical permit. So it's actually $290.
So Mark, I know I sent you an email on a little bit of a history of this. Yeah, I sent you, I replied to your email. I replied to Timmy's and your email. So going back to Chief Silva was the chief at the time. He came before the council. He explained the amount of time that it takes to do this. And also, he was very concerned about the city, wanted his department to make sure they're spending the time and doing everything diligently, correct, right, which I'm sure no matter what the price is, they're going to do that because the chief's name is on that right carry permit, right? So he brought that before us. And at the time, we asked how many people are applying for permits. And it wasn't an astronomical number. And again, it's still not an astronomical number from 2013, since this is implemented. There's been 103 new applications, 21 renewal applications. So 124 applications, and there's still 60 something pending, 68 active CCW permits. So with that being said, we looked at the amount of time the police department was spending on this. And was it fair to the taxpayer? Now, we're talking out of 100 and something of these applications. I'm going to assume they're all West Warwick. I'm just going to say that. Out of 120 something residents that are requesting over the last 10 years, so figure 12 to 13 a year, right? Are requesting a permit license through the town of West Warwick and the amount of time that they're spending on it. Why should every other taxpayer have to cover that expense when that is being done? So that was a big discussion here amongst the council. So the council at that time voted 5-0 to go forward with the $250 processing fee. Now, there was concerns. There were people asking about the rights and whatever. We took nobody's rights away. They can still apply with us for $40 with the $250 processing fee, or they can still go to the state, which ultimately I think a lot of police departments want the state to take this over anyway, but they still can go to the state and pay the $40 if they'd like. Now, there's, last night having a conversation with Mark, there's a may and a shall, keep me honest there. There's a may with the state approved and West Warwick shall approve. So that's another whole discussion. Again, I'm not pro or anti, but I'm going to use, if it's about safety and about it, the amount of time a police department has to spend on this, that I still agree to 250. And based off 10 to 12 applicants a year average, I don't think we should be changing that, but that's just my opinion.
Well, to go along with the state versus town, it's not just the may and shall. That's the one difference. The other difference is with the town license, if you walk into a store and you want to buy your firearm and you have a town license, you can walk out with it that day. If you have a state license, you still have to wait the 7 days. Okay, and with the state license, the flip side on that one is you can actually open carry with a state license. With a town license, you can't. So there are differences as to why people might want a town license over a state license. So you kind of are infringing on them if you're telling them you have to wait the 7 days because otherwise you got to pay this
Are you
$250.
infringing for safety reasons though?
It is a safety reason.
Because
What
I'm
if-
gonna use
what
a
if-
quote that you say, it's never an issue until it's an issue. right?
Exactly. So you have a female who has an abusive boyfriend or husband, and she's not feeling safe, so she wants to go buy a gun, but she only has a state permit. She's got to wait that 7 days, and that 7 days she gets killed by her boyfriend, where she could have defended herself. So yes, it is a safety issue.
But you can turn that and say, the guy who wants to take that gun and come here and shoot you, right?
I'm just saying.
Doesn't have to wait 7 days. So
Right.
you can twist that,
We-
we can twist that to anything.
Exactly.
And
but
I don't
it's-
want to do
But
that.
it's still a hypothetical on both sides. So yes, you could say hypothetically that you are infringing on somebody's right to safety, correct?
Both
Okay,
ways.
so both ways. So it is somebody's safety. So two
So at
hundred and
that
fifty
point-
dollars,
200, so at that point, if I'm honestly feeling unsafe, I personally think I'm gonna pay the 250.
then you still have to go through the whole background check and everything else. So that's the issue.
No, what I'm saying is if I have a choice between West Warwick and the state, and I feel that the town of West Warwick's gonna get me it quicker, I'm going to pay my 250 if I
But
want.
what if you can't afford it? Again, we're a distressed community. We have a lot of people that $250 is, do I buy the gun or do I get a permit to carry it but don't own it? That's the point. That's the situation we're putting people in. It's $300 to get a permit in this
Can we-
town.
Can we involve the chief in the conversation?
Yes.
All right, I just think it would be good to ask.
Can I ask you, you said something about.
I know he's
68
excited. He wants to
pending?
come up and talk about this. I can tell him.
He can answer, but the 68 pending active CCW permits, whatever. that is.
So that doesn't make sense to me.
What's
If you're saying
CCW?
if there's three,
It might take that long.
Concealed carry weapon.
yeah, but if you're saying there's only 12 or 13 a year, why, there's 68
Based off
pending?
his email, since 2013, we had 103 new applications and 21 renewal applications. Renewals do not require a neighborhood canvas or oral panel review. 91 applications were approved and 12 were either denied or not acted upon due to incompleteness or failure to provide required documents. All 21 renewals were approved. We currently have 68 active CCW permits with 13 set to expire in 2023-24.
Active permit. not
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Chief? How you doing?
Hi.
How much time, so let me ask you, how much time does it take to physically do one of these licenses?
It depends largely upon where the resident, where the applicant lives. If it's in West Warwick, ballpark figure, 6 to 8 hours. If they live outside of West Warwick, depending on how far out they go, it takes a little bit longer. Some people live in Connecticut and Massachusetts, so I have to send a couple of officers
Wait, so they,
out of,
so they don't have to live, they can be in another town and still come to get it done in West Warwick?
that's correct.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep, that's a state statute. They either have to be a bona fide resident of the town, have a bona fide business in town, or they can live in any state in the country as long as they have an out-of-state carry permit and they can just happen to come to little old West Warwick and we have to do their permit for them. That requires significantly more time because generally, unless they live extremely far away, we're going to drive to Connecticut, we're going to drive to Massachusetts to do a neighborhood check for those applicants. Now,
Can we
if they
make a
live,
resident, non-resident fee?
That's where it's gonna get at.
Well.
Well, they do it all
but-
over the place.
And that's what I was gonna bring up tonight also, and that's something I had put out there is, and it's actually Mark's idea to begin with, so I want to give credit where credit's due, to have that separation. You know, the state charges residents $30 to park at the beaches, $60 if you're out of state. So there are things out there where there's a resident fee and a non-resident fee.
Yeah, you can make a
Um,
resident, non-resident, and not non-state.
And I don't know what the fees are at the ice rink anymore, but I know when my kids were little, West Warwick residents paid one price, outside of West Warwick residents paid another price for the skating rink. I don't know if it's still like that, but it is. Yeah, so it's still like that at the skating rink. So we already do it. It's not unheard of. So I think that if we did something like that, and again, I would still like to knock it down, on the cost, because when you have an applicant, how much do they charge for application fee to join your department?
it's a third party, so it's either 25 or $35.
Right, but when they go through your whole process and you start the background check, you charge them $250 to do the background check.
We do not.
You do not, but it's the same manpower, correct?
Probably more.
probably more, but not a lot more, because I've done them, and same thing, you go knocking on the doors.
Yeah, no, we spend a lot more on police applicants than we do on carry and concealed weapon permit
But
applications.
a lot of the stuff that you do for concealed carry, you do for your police applicants as well. Then so you actually spend more time, but you don't charge them that extra money.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
so it's the same thing. And most of these people are residents of the town who already pay taxes here, and business owners in this town who already pay taxes here. That's the majority of the people you get, correct? Or concealed carry?
Correct.
Yeah, so they're already paying taxes here. Why should they pay a double tax for something that the Constitution gives them a right to have to begin with? I don't agree with it. Now, I understand there's a cost to it. With the FBI guys, we talked about that because it went from what, $40 to $50?
30 to 50,
30 to
30 to 40.
30 to 40.
Yes.
You know, so there is other expenses that go along with this. So if we don't go to zero, I'm fine with that, but I just think 250 is way too high. And I think for town residents, we should cover, $50 to cover that that portion of it. And if they got to go out of town, $100.
So if somebody comes into you for a weapon, they have to. All right, terminology, they come into you.
You're giving out weapons
The
now?
$40 goes to the state, correct?
No, that stays with us.
Okay, so can you explain, please?
It does
explain
end up at the
process there?
FBI.
What's that?
It ends up with the FBI because
Well, I
they
think
charge us for a
I think
submission.
he's talking
So
about that $40.
Talking about the $40.
that the state law says we have to charge for the permit. That stays with us.
Yes. but
until
end
we
up-
get an
we end up-
invoice
we end
from
up
the
giving it
FBI for
back out.
submitting the fingerprints.
Right, so that $40 we don't keep.
No, it comes in one hand and
It goes out the
basically
other.
it goes out the other. Yes,
So you don't make any money. If we, say we were to charge $40, the town makes zero.
correct.
Okay, so. And this is not my expertise here as far as weapons and all that, but, so somebody comes into you and wants to apply for a business registration, business license, whatever we're calling it now, what's the fee? Okay. Okay, and then the clerk's office goes to work, and they make all the phone calls to fire and building, and then it ends up going to sewer, right? So everybody's involved in this for $110, correct? So can we do the same correlation with somebody comes in to your department for this reason and charge the same fee, 110? So it's the same across the board. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of.
I mean, I want to hear what your opinion is. I want to hear what the town manager's opinion is. I mean, sorry.
You kind of put me on the spot. I mean, I wasn't here when the first ordinance, well, I was here, but I wasn't the chief of police. I understand the concern about it does cost us money. I also understand Mr. Bourgette's concern with, it is high. You could argue that it's high. But there is a cost associated with doing a thorough background check. I feel much better that the council would come up with any proposed changes.
What are some neighboring communities around us? The other 38,
The majority of the cities and towns that I was able to look at online, which I'm going to say probably 22 to 24 of the 37 cities and towns. There's only 2 others that I could find and verify that they also charge an additional fee above the $40 state statute fee. I believe it's East Providence charges $60 and Central Falls charges $160
on top or just?
on
that's it?
top of the $40 fee that pretty much every department that I saw also
Is
charges.
that resident, non-resident, or just
There's
that's
no,
out the window?
from everything that I've seen, I haven't seen any distinction between, resident, business owner, or out of state resident. There's been no difference in any of the pay
So
scales.
you can go anywhere.
No, by state law, the only way you can go anywhere, like the chief said earlier, if you have an out-of-state license already, then you can go to any community and apply for a license for Rhode Island. Otherwise, you have to either live in town or have a business interest in town in order to apply through West Warwick.
So if I'm from out of state, why would I come to West Warwick and pay $250 when I can go to another state, to another town and pay the $40?
You wouldn't.
I don't know.
But
It
no,
does,
it
it does,
has-
it
though.
has
Obviously,
happened.
100
Right,
something
so-
people.
right,
have.
It has happened.
Yeah, but those aren't out of state, were they?
That would be a concern with me, that somebody's doing that versus
In the 250 versus 0, I'm thinking, all right, what's going on here, you know?
There's various reasons that I'm not gonna get into for legal purposes tonight, but, because the chief and I had some conversations on some of the reasons and
Concerning reasons.
very, very concerning reasons. And, but the chief covers that very well with his letter that he sends into the state. So, I mean, we're covered as far as that goes.
Again, I mean, I think you asked, but I would concur with everything that the chief said. And just add that in my tenure there, and I know the chiefs before me, and I know it continues with Chief Levine, is we take those very seriously. Our names stamped on them, or we co-sign them. So it's obviously a big responsibility for a weapon owner. It's in my opinion, I don't want to necessarily lose sleep over it, but as you're signing those and reviewing them, I mean, it popped in my mind the what ifs. So we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and doing a thorough job and having confidence that we're doing it. Obviously, there is a cost to it, whether, that's borne in a police budget or borne at some type of fee. Again, that was something that was recommended by then Chief Silva, and is at your discretion.
I completely agree. I mean, when the chief told me all the steps that West Warwick does, I was astonished because it is a lot of what you do for a background check for a new employee, for the police department. It's not everything, but it's a lot there. So I'm very impressed with that. And I understand there's a cost to it, but again, majority of these people are already paying taxes in this town, and they pay high taxes in this town. We all do. And I just don't see it adding another fee on top of what is their constitutional right to do. That's what the background check does, is if you've given up your constitutional right to do that, to have this privilege based on actions that you've done in your life that this background check is supposed to expose, so they don't have to sign, and they are indemnified through the law, they cannot be sued. But even with that knowledge, they still go through this heavy process because, as Mark says, it weighs on your mind. But if Chief and I had discussions, I know he says he's had put his name on some that he didn't agree with, but that word shall means he has to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the 250 we talked about a lot of numbers, the 250 is on top of the 40?
Yes.
Correct. And that's it, just to clarify, so everybody's on the same page, that's a one-time fee. So that never comes back if they renew. So the permits are all good for 4 years. So if they renew in 4 years, it's just the $40 permit fee again. So that 250 is a one-time fee.
And what if it's like a renewal, somebody lived in Cranston or Warwick and then they moved to West Warwick? Is it still the renewal, or they would have to go back like?
Well, if they're gonna now come to us, it's a new permit through us.
Okay.
They can go back to Warwick and reapply if they want.
I would assume so, based on the statutory language, they would. be
Or
able to-
or any town, if they're in West Warwick and then they move to Cranston, they can come renew in West Warwick?
Well, that's state law that says that language again.
No, but I'm saying if you lived in West Warwick and you went through the process and then you moved to Providence and then you go, all right, well, I don't want to, I'm just going to come back to West Warwick to renew, like, is that the same?
I don't think you can if you don't.
Yeah,
live there.
I don't think you
Yeah,
can, because you'd either have to be a bona fide resident,
Okay,
business owner, or an out-of-state permit holder,
Okay.
and you wouldn't be, you would actually have
Okay.
an in-state permit from another municipality.
Because you're gonna have to sign it, you wanna go through the process.
Correct,
again. Yes.
correct.
Probably a
Yes.
silly question, but this is per owner or per weapon?
For a
Per
license.
permit,
The
per
permit is
individual, correct.
So I could go in and register free.
We're not registering, we have nothing to do
This
with
is
your
just a
weapons.
license.
But
You could get a permit and
Permit,
never even
permit.
have a
About
gun.
registrations and licenses.
Yeah, I know.
You
Yes,
can carry
that-
a 9mm one day and.
So it's per person.
Well, that's not true either.
No.
Well, you have to.
It's based on what you qualify with.
Yes.
That's what I mean, like you could be qualified for 3 guns.
No, if you qualify with a 45, you can carry anything under a 45.
So
You could carry all three if you have a permit.
Yes.
The permit covers.
It'd be
person.
bulky.
Concealed carry.
Covers the person.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Right. You don't even have to own a weapon in order to get a permit. You'd have to borrow somebody's qualified, but that's a whole other story. So again, I'm asking the council you know, to consider lowering this cost, to the taxpayer. Because like I said, it's the constitutional right. I'm a constitutionalist. To me, there shouldn't even be a permit process for people to legally carry a concealed weapon. But the state law justifies, you know, puts that forward, so we can't change that here, but we can make it easier for our residents to defend themselves. Because I was a cop for 22 years, and I could probably count on a handful of times where I actually rolled up on something in progress without being called to it. And most of the time, by the time we get there, the act is done. You know,
So this $250 fee, how is it, was it a resolute, how did they get put in place? Is it an ordinance?
It was a council resolution in
Resolution.
2013.
So there would have to be another resolution that would come forward.
Yeah, where did the number, felt like the 250 come from?
Based upon the amount of hours that it took to do it. So average was 6 to 8 hours. I think he put it at $40 an hour for the police officer. So at that night, there was talks of $500 and
So this number, the number you had with how many applications we've had in the last 10 years, do we
again,
have a breakdown of how many of those people were out of state? I wonder how many percentage of those, like how many
I don't have the exact number, but I'm going to say probably
small?
80% are probably local to West Warwick.
I mean,
Easily 80%, I would say.
if we're gonna lower, are we thinking, I mean, you put it on the agenda, you thinking to eliminate the 250, maybe make it a more reasonable number? And then maybe, and I don't know if we can legally, maybe we should have either Tim or Al,
just gonna
can
say-
we make the out-of-state one a higher fee than the 250?
The council,
out of
if the
town, I mean.
council has the appetite to change, you're gonna amend the existing resolution. If you're gonna keep it the same, you're gonna lower it, then the issue is gonna come in, what are you gonna do about residents, non-residents? I gave you all a memo that, again, I'm not a Second Amendment attorney, but the thought process is that if you change something for a resident versus a non-resident, states have that power, but cities and towns do not. So you might, I'm saying might, potentially have a challenge that I'm not saying will happen, but it could happen when people come in and say, why are you treating me differently just because I don't live in your town? When it's gonna, if it's the same amount of work done, and I know what you said about the beaches,
Right.
but I would counter that with the tolls.
But it would be the same amount of work, though.
No, it's the same amount of work because if you're doing like, I guess, what's the furthest you guys have ever gone in Massachusetts or Connecticut?
I don't know how far in,
Well, you're
going to
going out of
Connecticut
town,
and
though.
Massachusetts,
You're traveling outside of the 8.5 square miles, right?
traveling out of state.
Okay, so there is more work.
I mean, I like,
If you, what I'm trying to say is it's a cost benefit, I guess as to if it's only 20% over the people for the last 10 years that have come in here that are out of state residents, where they have to go for, you know, the neighborhood check and all that stuff, versus what would happen if they were contested. So if you don't think there's, no, I'm just saying, if you don't think there's gonna be anybody contesting it, then you can make it whatever you want.
But
It just-
Lori just confirmed that we charge a different rate for out of towners to go ice skating.
The-
You were in Coventry. Is there a different rate? for
there
Briar
usually,
Point Beach?
there's also, there is a difference
There's a
between,
difference.
there's not out of
Right,
town.
but I would just counter saying, you don't have a Second Amendment group for ice skating.
Well, I get that, but there's still, you have a Second Amendment right, so you shouldn't even have this. So lowering it should be
I'm
fine.
not gonna agree or disagree. I'm saying you guys can do what you want.
And I
Alright, as
agree
far
that
as-
there's an additional cost. So if we make it $50 for in town and $100 for out of town, I don't think there's gonna be an issue for that because we can justify it. There is an additional cost.
All
for
I can tell
somebody.
you is that you may face a challenge in the future. I'm not saying that you are, but you may. That's all I'm saying.
And like I said in the beginning, one of the things that was brought before us was the amount of time, the impact on the budget in the police department. Also, Chief Silvers, and I'm sure you have the same concern, you're putting your name on that, right? That the time is spent properly, and we all agreed at the time. And we also said for the amount of individuals that are requesting these licenses, that why should every other taxpayer have to fund that? So that was another, because now, if he's not getting that revenue and he's spending that time, whether it's overtime, whatever, he's gonna change his budget a little bit to accommodate
But
that,
but
correct?
Dave, I've made that same argument to you when we give out money to these different organizations every year. I've made that same argument. What if somebody doesn't agree with that organization, but we still take their tax dollars and give it away? There's no problem with that. Which side of the coin are we gonna fall on here? I kept my mouth shut on that since I've been on this council this time. Haven't I? Because
We've always felt the same way, and I
I have,
understand that.
but in the last time I was on the council, I expressed it every budget season. Every budget season. I didn't express it last year and I wasn't planning on expressing it this year. But if we're gonna make that the challenge, that why should the taxpayers pay for somebody's concealed carry permit when that person already pays high taxes in this town to begin with? Then I'm gonna make that same argument for all this money we give away every year, because there's people out there who might not agree with some of this stuff and they don't want their tax dollars
But
given
you're
away.
saying we're taking their constitutional right. We're not taking their constitutional right.
I didn't-
Maybe.
No, I did not say you're,
Mr.
I-
Palazzo, please.
I did not say you're taking it. I said you're making it harder for them to exercise their Second Amendment right. And it shouldn't happen. It's a Second Amendment right. We have a right to bear arms. And the state, in my opinion, with their permitting process already makes it more difficult. But again, that's on the state. We can't do anything here as a council with the state. So I'm not going down that road, but we as a council can make it so people can access their right easier by not charging $250 on top of the $40, making it almost $300 for something that the Constitution gives them a right to do. That's my point.
So do you have a number that you had in mind?
Like I said, because of those different things come up, and even the people I talked to, one guy, he's been carrying for 25 plus years. And he's like, listen, I understand there's a cost. He doesn't mind paying something. He's just $250 is way too much. He ended up going out of town to get his license because he already has a license in another state also. Because,
They help you do that, okay.
yeah, because he already has a
all
license in
right,
another state,
okay.
because, he's like, I'm not gonna go pay $250 to West Warwick when I can go to East Greenwich and get it, because that's where he went. So, to me, again, I think $50 for a resident and $100 for non-resident. The $50 covers the cost for the fingerprint cards for residents who already pay taxes here. The $100 is that extra $50 that the police department has to spend time and money going out elsewhere. Because I'm assuming majority of them are probably local, Coventry, someplace local that you're not traveling to Connecticut.
The vast minority are from out of state.
Correct. So, and that's why.
You Go to your own town and pay the $40 fee.
Well, like you said, majority of them are just for $40, yes. So I'm just asking the council to consider that, and if so, we could put on the next agenda and if not, then
I don't mind the lowering our fee. I think that if we're gonna do an out of town one, maybe we just keep the out of town one as it is now, and the in-town one is the lower amount.
well, as Tim expressed, and I did speak with another attorney on this also, and then Jay and I had a conversation. He was talking about it was 1 for 2 or.
Is it a rule? I mean, when I worked for the town of Coventry, one of the things that we had an issue with Bride Point Beach. It was resident versus non-resident. And DEM had what was called 2-in-1 rule, 1-and-2 rule, where you charge, just use this for an example, say it was $50. You can charge up for a resident, you can charge up to double for a non-resident. So you could actually play with that number in between.
Okay, so you can't have it be a crazy number that was.
No, and that's,
Right,
I
and
mean,
that's-
I don't know if the rules still exist. I can't see why it would change.
And most
Joe
of this.
Dias, I don't know if you remember, he was the one that was our contact at the point, when I spoke with him about it. So,
So you couldn't set it like, we only want local residents, we're gonna charge $300 for like out-of-state residents to park, but $10 for
and that's
local,
why
and
that
that's why
rule
they did
takes
it.
it in,
Right, and
yeah,
that's why
because
Because you might do that to stop.
You look at the
Stop
state
riprap
parking
and
at
all
the
that.
beaches, it's 30/60. So it seems like DEM is consistent with that, and a lot of this is covered under DEM. In the state law, yeah, it talks about DEM issuing the permits and.
Oh,
Do you have any input as for a dollar amount that you would feel comfortable, like, I mean,
Not really. Like I said, I'm certainly not a legal
no, I get it.
expertise. I think that.
More as far as the amount.
At the end of the day, the permits are gonna get done, right? At
You're
the end
gonna
of
do
the
the
day,
same
we're gonna
job
do
either
it.
way,
We're
right?
gonna do them
Right.
regardless.
Right.
Just to reiterate what the town manager said, I take these things very seriously. My name's on them, and I know there's some indemnity language in the statute. I don't buy that for 1 second, to be honest with you, because there's also the caveat that says, as long as they're done, in good faith. Well, the problem is we're gonna have attorneys arguing what was good faith. So I think we go well above and well beyond what we maybe have to do by state statute, but that makes me feel a little bit better that we're doing the right thing. We're keeping people's rights, the Second Amendment rights intact, I believe. I think we do a thorough process to make sure that carrying concealed weapon permits are handed to people that are legally and maybe mentally and physically able to process the seriousness of those. So we do a lot of work. I don't know what a dollar amount is the best. We're gonna do them regardless.
You're gonna do the
But
same
there is,
amount of work.
there is a cost to it, and we're gonna do them regardless.
And right now you're doing about
Here's an
10 a year, right? An average for the number we have, right?
But, you know, they go in spurts
number
because
tonight.
there's times that we'll have 4 or 5 in progress at the same time, and then you might not get one for a month and a half. It really, they don't all expire at the same time. So we'll get a run of them, and it usually happens to fall with the national political scene when things are going on in the national political
You got
scene.
all of them
Then
were
we, then we,
2020?
then, you know, then we see an influx of them. So
Is the renewal the same exact process?
it is all, the only difference is a couple things. We don't charge the 250, just to
Right,
reiterate
right.
that. We generally don't do an oral board process unless we see something in the paperwork.
Okay.
Clearly, we do you know, a state, a local, and a federal background check again. And if we see something in, you know, Mr. Bourget will understand this, cross-agency checks that kind of, when we check with other police departments, if there's been some contact that raises our suspicion, we'll delve much deeper into that. And maybe we have to do that oral board interview again.
Okay.
And generally, if they haven't moved, we're probably not going to go do a neighborhood canvas. Again, that can change depending on if we get if we have some indication that there might have been something going on. So, but generally the process is exactly the same. As far as the background checks, as far as, you know, the telephone interviews, the requirement that they show proof of a qualification by an NRA instructor or a police instructor if they're a retired police officer. Those types of things stay exactly the same.
Just want to clarify, DEM, they established a basic pistol rifle course, so they're not involved with actually issuing. So I clarified that, and I wanted to look at it. I knew it was in there someplace.
We don't have to come up with a number tonight. correct?
No, since you're going to be amending a resolution, you would now say, are we going to keep non-residents at 250, residents at 100? Or are you going to drop them both? So my suggestion would be, Mark, if it's yours, just introduce the language as you want to see fit as it relates to an amended resolution, and then the council can do what they want with it that particular evening when you hear it. Because you're going to discuss it and act on it anyway, so you need something in front of you. So you would be amending, I don't know, forgive me, I can't think of the,
I think it's 2013,
It's right here,
58.
if you want a copy. Oh, yeah.
you're going to be amending
I think Jay might want. to see that.
2013-58, and then whatever the language is in that, you can address it that way. One aside I thought was kind of interesting, researching some of this stuff, the $40 fee has been around since 1996, and no one's once tried to change it for whatever reason. So whatever your particular proclivity is, or love of the Second Amendment or guns, but just that I thought it was interesting that even with interest, not with interest, but with inflation, no one's tried to change that in 30-something years. So, but I got to figure fingerprints, the cost went up.
That's what the chief was saying, yeah, so. So I'd like ballpark number that the council's looking for, unless the council's just gonna address
I'll
these
just
two.
throw, I'll just throw my suggestion. I like the idea of lowering it, but maybe we cut it in half and we keep the out of state. So 125, 250. I know that's higher than yours. That would just be just the number I would throw out there to start at. I do like the idea of lowering it, but that way we keep the out of state, considering all the extra work that goes in for those.
I don't know if we can do a difference from out of town to out of state.
Whatever, you know what I mean? Out of,
Well, I
you
know,
know what I
but
mean? But that way it still reaches that 2-to-1 rule. We're still, yeah, that's just the number I'm throwing out there, but. That's right, yes, resident, non-resident.
Okay.
That way it still lowers it.
Well, just if I may, the resident, non-resident thing, I just as a clarification, because by statute, they don't need to be a resident of the town. They can be a bona fide business owner as well.
Outside of this.
Categories of whether or not there should be two different. That's where.
So resident or, yes.
Right.
Or out of state, or
Just for the reasons where the amount of extra work that's gonna go in for the outside of that. Yeah, that's just my. Okay. That's my 20%
Alan, I
opinion.
can't see you and you can't see me, but I'm looking at Jay Licciardi for an answer, so. No, I understand. You're saying that's 20% of the council, that's your second out first. So again, I understand one person out of five is 20%. We're waiting for the rest of the council to respond.
Okay, am I up?
Yes.
Okay. I'm, honestly, I know you have to do work. I know everybody's on payroll. I'm fine with no charge for a resident. And, or
Double that.
if it has to double the zero, I know, I was just thinking that. But if you have to pick a number,
Yeah.
if you have to pick a number, I don't know. Go with 40. I mean,
Well, the
to me, it's
the
40 and 80. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
And then there'll always be the extra 40 on top of.
I'm trying to correlate this to something.
But you know that the $40 by state is gonna be, you're saying 40 and then 80 for this particular process.
Yeah, I mean, if we have to charge something, correct?
No. You don't have to charge anything, except that $40 by state.
Oh, so the
law
$40 for
actual
the
card.
state. So
Yes.
I'm fine with zero. Well, no, because I'll be a hypocrite.
No
So,
matter, no matter what, everybody has to pay $40.
right, so
Whether you
I'm,
go through the state, whether you go through the town, whether,
Go
no
ahead,
matter what, you
go ahead.
have to
I
pay
just want to make
$40.
sure everyone realizes that there's a bill before the Senate right now that's going to restrict any, processing fees. If it passes, it's only going to be the $40 that's already in statute.
So then why don't we wait till that, I mean, is that,
Well,
When is
because
that-
one,
when is that
it's put,
supposed to happen?
put forward and it's still in committee, the chance
Is
of it
it?
coming out of committee, to me, is slim to none.
oh, all right.
And then it,
Okay.
and then it passing here in Rhode Island is probably even less of a chance than it coming out of a committee.
and I'll be honest, I'm fine with that. Just do that. That's my vote. My vote is pay the $40. Take it, process to the, pay the state the $40, go to the FBI, and that's it. I feel, I totally understand what you're saying. When you put your name on something, you own it. You know,
But
I know,
he's gonna do.
we're
no
gonna do
matter
it whether
what.
it's zero or it's $1,000. You're gonna do the same thing.
Absolutely,
So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not worried about that at all.
Are you 50 and 100?
I would be willing to go with 50 and 100, but again, my personal preference is zero. But I understand the reasoning behind, the cost behind it. We are a distressed community, as already been mentioned. We are in a budget season. We are gonna have a tight budget. You know, so I think some money going back to the police department to make up for those fingerprint cards is acceptable to me. So I'd be willing to go to 50 to 50, 100 or zeros. I'm good with either one of those.
So
but I
we're-
don't want to go higher than the 50, 100.
We're out money.
Max 50, 100.
Forget about man hour, human power. Are we out cash by doing this?
Yes, but I'm gonna be completely frank with you.
Yes.
It's not a lot of money. I mean, if we're averaging, let's just say 12 to 14 a year, we're probably losing $10 each. Because the fingerprint submission is $50. It used to be 40. I think that's where it came from, the $40 in state statute. And there's an incremental cost for the software, the printer, and the actual cards. At the end of the day, it's not really significant in my budget in any way, shape, or form.
I don't think that's not worth charging anybody for that. You know, if we're gonna charge, we'll charge, so keep it zero.
Like I said, I'm gonna reiterate it. I'm gonna do the same job, whether you charge, somebody $10,000 or $0. We're gonna be consistent and we're gonna do the best job we can. Just understand that there is a cost to it. It's not significant in my police budget. That's the
So
reality. of it.
just out of curiosity, what did you do with the $2,500 that you got, or the $3,000 that you got every year? Does it go into a particular kitty?
I don't know
or
the fund that it goes into.
I would suspect it just goes in the police.
Just revenue?
Yeah, it's not earmarked for anything specific.
I have no problem then. If you're not concerned about the money part of it,
I don't think it's a significant amount of money. Now, I could be back here in a month saying, we just had an influx of people.
well,
but-
that's what I'm
but-
concerned
but-
about,
but,
that we're
you
gonna
know,
have,
we're
talking about this and all of a sudden we do have a big influx
I
of people.
think- I
That's my
think the-
concern.
I think the actual money that we spend it pales in comparison to the man hours, so to speak, the salary for my men and women.
Right.
But let's face it, they're gonna be there. I'm going to be paying them anyway. Maybe there's incremental little overtime here and there on travel expenses, but I mean, again, in the size of my budget, which is never enough, by the way, you know, that's not.
That's next Monday. Yeah,
I'll be-
yeah, all right.
But that, I don't think those expenses are that significant.
Also be aware that Chief Silva was trying, obviously, and I don't know, you shared a little bit with me, but the opinion was they wanted to get out of the business of this, right? No, wait a minute, hold on. This 250 may have deterred more people to go to the state. I'm just pointing out, you may see an influx of more people coming here.
That's certainly a concern.
You get 20, 30 more, now you're gonna have your own department of one person. Now, the state has their own department that strictly does this.
Correct,
Right? So West Warwick Police Department does not have a 40-hour work week of a person who does this.
Hey,
So
Can you
if it comes up-
reiterate how many other communities charge for this?
Yeah.
Again, of the 24 or so, I'm gonna 22 to 24, I only found 2 that I verified actually charged.
And
that
the other
was-
ones only charge the $40.
And the other ones only charge $40.
So to me, it's a non-issue.
So,
No, I'm just
can
saying
I, so
influx
it
could
seems to
be an
be,
issue.
and I,
That's all I'm pointing out.
I'm assuming that you, your colleagues in other municipalities would agree that the state should take this over. Is there any way to get a group together to actually move that? I mean,
If I may, they've been trying to do that for at least 25 years.
but what, tell me what that means. They've been trying to do it. Just say. we think it
Municipalities
should
through
done?
the Police Chiefs Association
Okay.
and other
All right.
groups have attempted to have the state take it over, have the Attorney General do it. The Attorney General doesn't want anything to do with it.
Is there a-
Even though they have the resources to do it, they have the same types of, ways of finding out information, maybe probably even more than local police departments do, but it's been an ongoing battle for years.
Is there a time limit from, let's say I come in today and I file, do you guys have you have to get this done by a certain amount of time in case you guys get backed up with like 30 at one
So
week?
I don't want to misspeak, and I'm very cautious about saying this. I believe that there's been some established case law about 90 days. However, one thing that we do is we communicate very frequently with our applicants. If there's a delay for any reason, whether it be getting a background check or getting a hold of a reference, verifying the NRA qualification person, we're very good with reaching out to them and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. There might be a delay. Knock on wood, and I'm going to jinx myself. We haven't run even close to that 90-day thing. We're pretty efficient. Our men and women know what they're expected to do because for each of these applications, there's probably 4, with me, maybe 5 people that actually touch each application because different people have different roles to play in that background investigation. We have the background investigator. We have a dispatcher who usually runs the background checks for us. We have the major who reviews it. We have people that sit on the oral board panel. We have a detective that goes out and actually physically does the background check, neighborhood canvas, verifies the NRA qualification stuff. Then it gets reviewed again by the major who forwards it to me with a letter of either approval or denial. I review the entire packet. So a lot of people play a role in every single application that comes through our police department.
So I understand what Dave's saying. If we go to this route and it becomes, you're saying it's not a burden. If it does become a burden.
Well, I didn't say
can
it
you-
wasn't a burden.
No, but I'm just saying,
But
if
yeah,
it becomes
yeah,
overwhelming,
yeah,
can you let us
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and again, I hope I don't jinx myself. I don't think, from what I've been here a long time, I don't think that 250 for residents and bona fide business owners in town has been prohibiting people or been shying people away to not get a permit at all, that all of a sudden there's gonna be an influx. I really don't. Unless they just really like to come to downtown Arctic. I don't think a lot of out-of-state people are just gonna come flocking to West Warwick just because they want to see my name on their permit. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I will certainly let the town manager know and the town council know if it does, become, if we all of a sudden see a mass influx of permit applications. I don't expect to see that, to be quite honest with you.
So it's counterintuitive because I just heard all the work that you do. But if we are an outlier, I don't have a problem with going to 0.
It'd be stupid not to go to 0 based off what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Put it at 0, bring it back to us.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
No, listen, doing a lot of research on this and, it's an important topic. And like I said, there's that Second Amendment, right, prong to it, but there's also my name on it. That's the other thing. And I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. And, I'm certainly willing to, again, whether it's $10,000 permit fee or $0 permit fee, besides the 40, we're still gonna get them done and we're still gonna be thorough like we were.
And I'm still gonna say thank you for being thorough, because
Yes.
like I said, I was astonished when you told me everything that this department does for the CCW permits.
Yeah, and I was surprised during my research, I found other departments do more when it comes to like medical releases and that type of stuff. I was I guess pleasantly surprised that, some departments are really thorough with that. So I'm confident in the level that we do. I feel somewhat, assured that when I put my name on it, we've covered, our bases. So.
any other questions?
So there will be a resolution coming forth changing that?
Yes.
Yes.
And you said just amend the old one or create a new one?
No, why not a new one?
Or make it simple.
We could put on the next agenda to vote to eliminate,
Eliminate whatever it is,
Right.
But-
State law is gonna cover the $40.
Right.
but you might want to reference back, just in case.
Sarah and I will talk.
Yeah,
over it,
exactly. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
It's 2013-58, so.
Got it.
Got it.
So yeah, we just need a resolution saying that we're.
But the
We're
new one
rescinding
replaces it.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, update on the scoreboards at the West Warwick Civic Center.
I put this on the agenda also, just looking for an update, because last meeting, the way I understand we left it was Laurie was supposed to contact, or Kristen was going to contact MHEC and find out. It was one of you, I think it was Laurie, but I know you do a lot of the state stuff, so I didn't know if she was doing it or you were doing it. So just seeing if there's any kind of an update on the process here. Those chairs are comfortable, aren't they?
Good evening. So yes, I did finally get in touch with them. I did have a problem becoming a member only because our firewall would not allow the password to come through.
Okay.
So once I did get on there, I walked through with Denise. We walked through a lot of it. They actually have a webinar tomorrow that I'm going to actually be part of. They're also Thursday, they're at the Rhode Island League City and Towns and whatnot. So I think I'll be able to speak with them a little bit more, just to obviously, I will say thank you for introducing it to me, just because there is a lot of stuff on there that not just my department, but a lot of the departments within the town would be able to use. So obviously I don't have enough information, but Scoreboards Enterprises is on there. Apples to apples. Are they the same? No, but I am not opposed to putting the scoreboards out to bid, to be honest with you, of what could happen, what other people could give us, just because they all are considered sole source vendors in their own industries. But we may get something better than Nevco offered. We don't have a signed contract with them. I'm okay with it. I will say Scoreboard Enterprises, every time I've talked to him, has amazing customer service. Like, I can't say anything but good things. And he explained to me from the get-go the difference of how they're able to call themselves sole source vendors.
You're talking about Mike?
Yeah. He's very personable. He's very professional. Again, so with Nevco, I mean, they're both very professional and personable and whatnot. And I don't really have much to say. Again, we don't have a contract
Well,
at this time.
But, I understood that the town was already members of
Yes,
MAGC.
we are.
But you had to create a separate account
We,
because you
each
don't.
person has to have
because
their own
We
login.
probably haven't used it in a long time, so it's like, we don't even know who created the original account.
So they're members through the Rhode Island city,
Through your
towns and
cities
cities.
towns, yeah.
And so with us being a member, we are able to use them.
Okay.
That's how Denise explained it to me.
So
I
when
don't
West
know.
Warwick was listed on there, it's not that West Warwick ever actually, an individual such as yourself, actually went on there. It's just a
Yeah,
league of
I
cities
mean,
and
I
towns
don't
just
know
put everybody there.
if anyone other in the town has ever used it. I mean, from just, again, very small glancing at it, just because it took so long to get the password to come through our firewall system. It was me having to send her an email and then her having to send me back an email for the computer to like give me a password. So, but, I mean, other than that, but I mean, there is a lot of stuff on there that, I probably will take advantage of being able to use it.
So maybe the next meeting we'll have a little bit more information.
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
this goes.
And
Okay.
again, especially if they're there on Thursday, like being able to like have a face-to-face conversation with them about what's going on, and then just understanding after tomorrow by sitting on the webinar, like how the process actually works with it. I mean, I definitely think it could be something beneficial for everyone, and, I have no problem sharing with everybody.
Thank you.
So question is, I brought this up several times, because of the amount of money that we're looking to spend.
Mhm.
And I think Lori should have some type of direction here, because I don't think it's fair to her. I'm under the impression, I do this for a living, so it's really tough to sit up here and listen to sometimes, because I have to write the specs. If it's a certain amount, you can't get quotes. You have to go out to bid. And I really feel that that's the avenue we should go, because it doesn't meet, you're looking at 4 scoreboards, right?
Right. So,
Various sizes.
yeah, so again, that's where I think I'm gonna go to, the town manager, the town solicitor, and probably to Kristen. Just in the case that we do go with the sports marketing package. So say, and ultimately that's my goal, is to go with someone that has the sports marketing package. And I think it's very weird, because are we actually paying any money for them? Because it's all done by sponsorship, so it's,
But the state law covers that, even if there's no cost. If the
Okay.
actual cost would be above the limit, you still have to go out to bid.
okay.
But in Nevco, I don't know anything with Nevco. I know they're a brand. I have to do, Nevco is a brand, Dick's Sporting is a brand, Game Time's a brand for playgrounds, they're all brands.
Mhm.
So in a spec, you write what you want.
Yes.
If you want a nice,
Yeah.
you want a hockey scoreboard of
Yeah.
various size, it may be different than the 3 scoreboards, I think you said 3, in the field house.
Free in the field house.
So do you want the standard scoreboard? Do you want it to, talk? Do you want it to have
Right.
advertisements
I
on
mean,
it?
so
All
my,
this is
one of
different,
my
so that's what's in the
main
spec.
goals is that we don't get an iPad. Because a lot of the new scoreboards come with an iPad, and I don't want an
You write that
iPad.
in the spec.
I
You-
want
You
a
can
metal box
customize what
that
you
no
want,
one's gonna
Laura.
break.
You customize what you
Yes.
want. And when the bid came out, for example, for the Factory Street Playground, and we were all up here, I believe. No, no.
Hey.
All right, the 3 of us were up here, but we chose at that point, do we want to put in for a company to purchase the equipment from and or installation? So we're we're customizing that in the spec. Correct? Correct? And we chose that.
You're telling her you're gonna start off with a dollar amount. This is what your budget is. Figure out what you need, figure out what you want, and then you're gonna put together your RFPs.
No, I
put
don't
it as
want
a-
to do that. I think
Well,
that's open-ended, but put
Well, I
in
mean, have
the
you
spec
given,
what you want.
have you given her a dollar amount or what she can spend?
I don't think we need a
No, I don't
dollar
think we
amount.
need to do that.
No, no,
because-
I'm just,
No.
because that's what, when you talk about all the bells and whistles, I'm assuming, again, the more you get, the more it's gonna cost.
Of course.
All right, so if you're telling the prospective vendors out there that you've got X amount of dollars and, basically they know you've got the standardized,
But that's
four-sided
what you
hockey.
leave up to the department head.
Right.
And obviously you're trusting the department head, any department head,
Right.
to not live beyond your means. correct?
I-
We don't,
I-
we
I-
don't need an NHL scoreboard. in the
No,
Civic Center.
I know, but
We
you
don't
don't,
just spend
but we don't,
$50,000 on
we
it.
don't need the blackboard that I talked about the last time either.
Exactly.
So the question I have is this, if you don't know what the dollars and cents are, how do you start putting together your RFP for what you want? You know what I mean? Because if you know, if it's $10,000 for A, $5,000 for C, and $15,000 for B, how do you know what you're gonna get unless you know what the dollar amount is?
You look online, you look in the books, you do your research.
Oh, no,
I've had to do
but
it,
what I'm
Jim.
saying is, but then now you say, okay,
Then you come up with a spec.
but the spec is gonna have all the bells and whistles, right?
No, the spec is, we need 4 scoreboards that do A, B, and C.
Right,
I
keep
don't
score.
want an iPad, I
time.
want a physical thing and installation and, or we give a price with installation, without installations, because I mean, that could come into it, you know, and then that's the basic specs. I don't think a dollar amount has to go there because she's also looking for marketing,
Right,
and marketing will eat up the dollar amount.
exactly.
So-
Some of them do differently because
Right.
some you're gonna make X amount of
Right,
dollars.
that's where you put
Yeah.
in what you want.
And some of them, you know, some of these companies go out and do all the marketing themselves. And some of them, I have to be part of every single bit of it.
And with Kara, she is interested in this project.
Yeah, she just doesn't install.
Right.
And that's
Well-
probably one of my bigger things.
Right, but she wouldn't be bidding on it because she only does the marketing. But
Mhm.
she works with Watchfire, who initially is the one that contacted me and got me in contact with Kara because she's closer than what he is.
Right.
And, you know, and they said they would absolutely bid on it. So I think if we just put out, if the state master agreement through MHEC is the way you want to go and that's covered by state law and we're all good with that, I mean, that's the best way to go because then we don't have to go through the bidding process. But if we go through the bidding process, it's just simply, you know, write out the specs of what you want, making marketing part of it, because that takes away the expense of the town where we don't have to come up with an amount.
Mhm.
And then I would put in there, you know, what's your cost with installation, what's your cost without installation, because then we got to figure out like how much it would cost for us to install them on our own to see if it's cheaper, you know, also.
But you have many
But you get those
options at
two
that
different,
point.
those two different
Yeah.
costs.
You're not stuck.
So,
I mean, at this point, I am fine with whatever. I mean, to be honest, there's not a lot of scoreboard to say stuff as, you know, as when end of August comes. And so if we could get it done probably very quickly, you know, move along. So before, you know, summer camp and whatnot starts, then we would be good. And then hopefully with the break between summer camp and September, you know, at the end of August, September starting, then they could get installed and that would be a perfect world. But I don't know if that'll happen, but we can hope for it.
So am I hearing that you're gonna go out to bid? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So we
Well, I
do
think-
have, but we do have a resolution that we've had to, we'll have to address that at some point in
Right,
time. because
so
it was
I
a
would ask
resolution.
that I sit with the town manager this week and then
Okay,
talk about. how to
And
get
come back to
that.
us.
but you're
Yes.
gonna look at MHEC before you go out to bid, or you're gonna do both? I mean,
I mean, if.
I'm gonna sit with,
MHEC is the state pricing, so she doesn't have to go out to bid,
That's
right?
correct.
If she's happy with the way that all plays out, she doesn't have to go out to bid,
That's
correct?
correct.
All
It
right.
would just be good to compare for just spending, looking at ARPA money, right, which.
Looking
No,
at,
this-
we're
this
looking at
wasn't ARPA
virtually
money,
no
huh?
money, actually, maybe $15,000 to install
Through Nevco.
for the electrical work if it is needed, maximum 15. So no, there's no ARPA money.
With the
no-
actual, with the electrical work, have we checked with Joe on anything? Joe, I think it's more based on what you're trying to hook up to it as opposed to
Yeah.
what the building can handle.
Right.
So the scoreboards that I have now are plugged into a regular plug.
Okay.
Like a plug like in your house. So, I mean, I don't know if,
Find the new one, same thing.
right, I may find the new one's the
Well,
same
they're-
thing,
they're
but
wired, but it's still. Right. I wired them up I wired them up at the ball field
Yeah.
numerous times. Not hard.
I forget what movie that is, but yes. That's right.
Any other discussion? We Put these scoreboards, the rest, this has been 2 months of scoreboards.
No, not yet,
Well,
but
it's been more than 2
soon
months.
we'll have new ones and they'll be beautiful.
that's right.
Pretty.
Probably not Greenbush school parking issues.
I put that on there also, and very quick movement there, Jay, without even looking up, it was great. Moving to the mic, even just like, I know you sent out a memo to everybody. It's just, this is still an important issue, and I want to thank the police chief. I don't know if you're directing people, police officers over there, but there was another officer today sitting there at release time. And so I appreciate that, especially considering, like I said, the last time he's sitting there without light bars, so people are less likely to see him and act stupid and get what they deserve. So thank you for that. But to me, I mean, it's been 3 months. I know we don't have any control over the school department, but to start like asking the question, I just hope that we start getting some more answers sooner rather than later. So again, I'm just gonna keep putting on the agenda and hope something happens, because if we don't get answers, or if we do get answers, it's just nothing we can do. At least we have an answer rather than just leaving it in limbo. I don't like things in limbo.
Any other comment on that? Thank you.
Consideration of Human Rights Day proclamation.
Proclamation.
Discussion?
After that last meeting, the following week, I had time to do some research. I reached out to the person who was proposing. I distribute that to all of you. I know there was one comment on one of the bullet points or one of the whereases that I just took the liberty of amending the verbiage.
And I like the change there.
So I don't know if that's sufficient, if there's support for it.
Well,
It
I
has the
don't know
information on
why.
what other communities.
I don't know why.
well,
But-
I think the reason, from what I understand, a little research I did on it also, it's the 75th anniversary of the UN
Yes.
proclaiming December 10th as, with Eleanor Roosevelt being the push behind it all, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it is a big milestone. One of the words I didn't pick up the last time, I picked up this time, and then a constituent of mine who happens to be in the room tonight also contacted me and doesn't like the wording, is global citizen. Obviously, with today's political environment that we're in, there's a lot of people out there trying to push a globalization of all nations. And so that global citizen kind of is a sticking point now, in my mind and others. So I don't know if the council even, like, I agree with just about everything that's here. You know, we're all created in the image of God, okay? We are all equal on that aspect. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, black, white, tall, short, fat, thin, none of that matters. You should all be treated equally. And that's pretty much what this says. But the global citizen part of it is a sticking point for, like I said, one of my constituents. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I mean, I don't have a problem with agreeing to this based on its underlying message. And the underlying message is, don't be stupid to other people.
Disagree. Everybody else? I know I watched this when I was in Florida. I saw your discussion on this, so. I wasn't at the last meeting, but again, things get brought to me. You know, the clerk's office addressed to me. I just put it on the agenda and get your opinions and move forward. So.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I'll support it.
As Mark said, there's nothing here that, the global citizen, if you're uncomfortable with that, then
Yeah, I don't think
It
there's
should be
anything
amended.
last time that concerned me, but I thought it was good to look up to, because just in
well,
case.
what it is,
Right,
what
'cause
we're,
some things seem very innocuous and they're not always.
and I assume, Mark, that you're comfortable that there's no issues, it's,
I mean, like I said, that there was, I think the last count, there was 5 or 6 communities that have done it already, 4 or 5 that are in the process, as we are. And obviously, it's this gentleman's goal and the organization to have everybody before December.
number 10.
That being said, all in favor?
Can
Wait a
we-
minute, wait a minute.
Sorry.
yeah,
No.
can we just take away the global citizen?
Yeah.
Network of citizens, just take away the word global, network of
We approve
citizens.
it, but minus the, we
Because-
just
The
remove
word
that.
global, right?
Just make an amend, make a motion to amend whatever the word you want.
Yeah, make a motion to remove the word global citizen, global out of that, because then with the whereas flows where it looks like it's just West Warwick citizens, just by taking that one. Is it the 7th?
Yes,
Se- 7th whereas paragraph, remove the word global.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just, the motion as amended. Just need somebody to make the motion.
As amended.
Make a
I'll
motion to
second it.
approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Upcoming appointments, Sewer Use Board of Review, appointment to fill a vacancy as an alternate member for a 3-year term. Sewer Use Board of Review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for a 3-year term. Board of Assessment and Review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for a 3-year term. Board of Assessment and Review, appointment or reappointment to fill vacancy for 3-year term. West Warwick Housing Authority, appointment or reappointment for 5-year term expiring November 2027, and Board of Canvassers, appointment to fill vacancy for Democratic alternate for 6-year term. Public forum.
Any comment from council?
I do want to just make one comment. Either the last meeting or the meeting before, I made a comment against Manager Knott. Publicly, I said that I made a comment against him, and I should not have. It was a private matter. So I want to apologize publicly to Mark for bringing that forward in the way that I did. I'm sorry.
Anybody else? Al?
As some of you are aware, my daughter is suffering from multiple melanoma. Early on in her treatment, she had a real bad setback, and she had to be taken to Rhode Island Hospital. As luck would have it, the emergency service that took her that evening was our West Warwick Police Department. A couple of weeks after the incident, she called me and she asked me if I knew anyone in authority on the fire department, excuse me, not the fire department. I said, yeah, I was very friendly with the chief. So she asked me if she could send me an email that I could get it to the chief, and which I did. And I feel that the email of what our fire department did, that this council and the people in this town should be aware of how lucky this town is. On January 6, 2023, 3 young men picked me up at the Cancer Institute and transported me to Rhode Island Hospital, trip number 28762. I was in very poor condition as I had numerous fractures along my spine, was in terrible pain, and was spiking a fever of 103. I wanted to let whoever needs to know that these 3 young men were the definition of excellence and what those working in the health care industry should strive to be. They not only treated me professionally and compassionately, but with speed, efficiency, and made sure to keep my movement and pain to a minimum. They also took the time to make the effort to make sure that my family members that had accompanied me to my appointment were okay, safe to drive, and gave them the instructions on when and where to go to meet me at the hospital. I wish I could remember the names of these men, but unfortunately I do not. I'm just hoping that they can be identified by the trip number and the date and be given to the accolades and the appreciation they deserve. You're lucky to have these people with the compassion, professionalism, and kindness that these 3 men showed to me and my family on January 6th, working for your town. Sincerely, Dina Day. She gave me permission, and the chief gave me permission to send this to you. I don't know their names, but I personally want to publicly thank those men and Chief Barone for leading the department to take care of my daughter the way they took care of her that night. And I wish more people would tell us council, the good things that the employees of this council, this town does. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you,
Our
Al.
thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. It takes a lot to come up here and read that obviously. And you're right, I'm glad that your daughter was able to send that email to the fire department and, and again, we wish you the best and your family the best.
She took care of it. But I don't know what. Want to publicly thank her.
And I'm going to reiterate what Dave just said. We're very sorry for your daughter. I mean, I know your situation, your wife as well recently, and I know your family's going through a lot. But I want to thank you and your daughter for bringing that forward, because I know in public service, we usually only hear the bad stuff, and to have somebody come up with accolades here and there is encouraging to us and rewarding to the firemen or the policemen, depending on the situation, when we hear it. So
She
thank
has
you.
told me that she has 42 cracks in her spine, and that they put her in a brace because it can crack more if she sneezes. And she said that these three men handled her with a care and a gentleness that she could not describe. How they took care of her. And
Well, thank you, Al, for telling us that story.
Good night, Al. Just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Ed Hathaway, 8 Surrey Lane, West Warwick. Speaking tonight for a couple reasons. Just want to thank you all for your service and the hours you put in for the town of West Warwick. I've been a resident since 2011. I currently am in the process of selling my home, most likely moving out of state, but I grew up in Warwick. So, what I thought of West Warwick before living there, what I think now, totally different. It's a great community, great town. With any town had some issues, but just continue to fight for the right reasons. And I think if we come together, we can solve a lot of problems. With that said, I'm going to acknowledge Greenbush Elementary School. My daughter, me and my wife decided to homeschool her last year. Been a public educator for 18 years, not in West Warwick. So I've seen public education go from good to the current state of affairs, what it is today. And there's a lot of issues going on, social, emotional, a lot of just, I think it's a microcosm what's going on in society. With that said, my daughter's thriving there. She's in kindergarten. The faculty and staff have been awesome and helped her flourish into, a leader to love school. And they do a great job. So it's a great elementary school, and I hope it continues that way. So issues I have before I leave, I've had my lawn waste. It's been out in front of my yard for a couple months now. I had to, my neighbor asked me to throw it on the lawn last couple weeks ago for the snow, right? So I did that, put it back in the street, still on the street. I don't know what the schedule is. I tried to look it up, but hoping to take care of those things. And I live 8 Surrey Lanes right around the bend. Cars fly by all the time. So people that are buying my house, young people, I don't know if they're married yet, but she's expecting. And I'm concerned, I want my kids to play outside. We don't feel comfortable them playing out front because cars fly by. It's like a cut through. And we've expressed issues many times. So I'm hoping that could get looked at and, just some sort of, I don't know what could be done, but they need to slow down. I almost got hit a couple times. My wife did, almost got rear-ended. So hoping those things, actually, because a former student is buying my house too. So, Rhode Island's a small world. So, thank you guys. And I'll be here till the end of June and plan on staying involved, but I do have to eventually formally, I don't know, I'll send it in writing. I'm on the pension board. So I have to send in that resignation. So it's been a pleasure, but good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just tell you about your yard waste, since I live on Pine Orchard, I drive by it. So you put it out a week after it stopped for the year, and
Oh,
it
really?
starts again in mid-April.
Okay.
So you can drop it off at DPW if you want to load it. If not, it'll be going in a couple weeks.
All right.
'cause
All right,
Mine too.
thank you. Yeah.
Maybe do one better. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'll grab it for you.
Okay, item number 1, Alan Palazzo, 5 Robin Lane. And I was just wondering, I know that's only the prototype, but could we at least move it up here? Because I have troubles going up and down. And I think it's better than this. So even if it's not painted, that's fine with me.
I think it's the stability part of it, because it's very light. I don't think it's very stable.
Have you tried it? Because I know that type of wood. That wood is heavy, the composite.
So the only reason why I was suggesting is that maybe it's just not stable.
Okay. Okay, a couple of items. Resolution 2013-58. I'd suggest you do what they did with the 18th Amendment. They passed the 21st. It said the 18th Amendment is hereby repealed. You can do the same thing. Okay, items. There were some on the agenda that I'm concerned with regarding the ethics training. You're going for that? That's great. I would suggest that all of you and all your boards and commissioners read the Rhode Island Constitution, Article 3, Section 7, regarding ethical behavior and the expectations. Okay, it's very clear. With regard to item 9, the concealed carry permit. Again, everybody's hung up on the Second Amendment. The people who wrote our Constitution, Rhode Island, they went with Gorshkoff, keep it simple, silly. Very simple. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's all it says. And there was a big discussion here about what the fee would be. I know you resolved it. However, if Mr. Goslin would have allowed me to come up and speak, I might have shortened that. When you're talking about the fees, Mr. Messier just pulled a number out of the air. We'll cut it in half. The 14th Amendment deals with equal protection. And as Mr. Bourget pointed out, there are probably a lot of people in this town that can't afford the money to apply for a permit. And I applaud the chief for, his guidance on this. And I think you all made the right decision. It was very simple. And if I'm talking about the chief, you guys all know I'm a very big fan of the West Warwick Police Department. And there was a story on WJAR about a raid in North Providence and West Warwick, where they confiscated a lot of drugs and a lot of weapons. And I'd like to recognize that department. We have a saying in the Navy, Bravo Zulu, well done. Maybe you should recognize the department and the people who participated in it and issue them some of a citation. With regard to the elderly, we're pushing against a limit for this year. And I've been raising it for a while, over a year. Just think if you would have taken the first step like I recommended last year, it would be in place this time around. And I've been in conversations with Mrs. Serpa for a while now about different items. She's very responsive. I would suggest that you contact Representative Norrie and have him co-sponsor that bill and have it ready to rock and roll for next year. Mrs. Serpent does an outstanding job. It's amazing what she writes to me, providing counsel. So that's a good one. Along the same lines, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Licciardi or Mr. Bourget mentioned veterans.
That was me.
That was you?
I know you'd like to give me credit, you gotta give me some credit.
No, I
sometimes.
thought it was one of those guys, but the
He
issue
he
is,
Brought it up initially, then I brought it up a second time. so,
okay, I couldn't see him, I can't hear either. But the issue is, I brought up a municipal veterans affairs officer as outlined and authorized in Rhode Island general laws. I thought it was only a year ago. Someone mentioned that was like 8 years ago. I don't think so, but I just want to bring that up again. If we had an advocate for veterans affairs, that might be covered. I was surprised to learn that our veterans with 100% disability in the state of Florida are allowed 100% exemption from taxes. That's what I've been told. I haven't verified it, but if we had a Veterans Affairs officer instead of quote, a council, maybe we would have someone standing up for veterans and doing things. That's just another item. You could put it on your list, Mr. Licciardi, for action, or maybe Mr. Gazin will do it, okay? The big one that I think you need to be prepared for, I know you're in the MERS system, okay? And I was warning about the Rhode Island, the West Warwick Pension Fund 20 years ago, and people ignored me. I brought up gas requirements, and everybody in the room looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about, Palazzo? Well, they're a big part of it. And I want you to understand, today, the president signed his first veto, which was of a bipartisan bill regarding ESG. And I'm not going to tell you what that is. That's your own homework assignment. However, it does not require pension funds to operate in the best interest of the stakeholders. That is the greatest return on the investments. It's a social agenda. And I think you need to contact the state of Rhode Island treasurer and regarding the West Warwick MERS system, where our money is deposited, or contact the unions, because I warned them 20 years ago. They need to get out of this business and provide investments that return the greatest return for the stakeholders, so that the taxpayers don't end up picking up the slack, okay? To me, that's a big one. I don't know if that went right over everybody, but it's something that needs to be looked into and acted upon. Maybe you could come up with a letter for the general treasurer for the next meeting, because I don't know what he's doing. I don't think he knows what he's doing. And that's just my opinion. That's my right. Now, with regard to town budget, and this is a matter of semantics with regard to workshops, I get confused because I came here last night because it said workshops. I would suggest a better title would be Town Council Budget Review, because I know you're going to have 2 public hearings. Maybe that should be budget workshop slant public hearing. And for the life of me, I can't find what the dates are. I looked, I put out public service announcements on many West Warwick Facebook pages. People pay attention to this. They look at it. They're watching the meetings. I get feedback. But that's something that needs to be done. Now,
Do we say the dates?
We told, yes, it's
April
April
4th
4th
and
and
yeah,
5th.
but it's not anywhere. It's not
It's on the website.
whose website.
The town meetings website.
I looked on the town meetings. I didn't see it.
Hold on.
It's,
Actually, there's an ad going into the paper as well. that we're
Okay,
Required, so
but
it'll be
if
run
peop-
3 times within the next 2 weeks.
the quote workshops are listed under the town council. That's where I was looking.
Can we
Oh,
put
yeah,
it
no, it
front and
is.
center?
It
if It's
is.
not.
Yeah,
on the website?
to me, that's simple.
And it's one of the 3, 4 things I'll put out on this
Red.
week's code red with Easter egg unless we're gonna get rained out.
Again.
So- Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna really get into things. At Sixth Fleet, I had a $700 million fuel budget that I was responsible for. I looked at the school department budget last night, and I looked at this. With regard to the school department budget, they must be copying the Soviet Union because it was, quote, a 5-year plan. If you look at that first column, hey, that's great. 22, 23 are actual, proposed 24. The rest of it, it's the same figures. What kind of projection is that? At the very end, they had some increase in numbers. Maybe they pulled it out of thin air, but I think the taxpayers deserve to look at that. And also, Sarah does a great job of putting supporting documentation online, and I put that out for the people. Maybe the school department budget should be there. And will they be included in your public hearing?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that would be good. So that would be another reason why the school department budget should be front and center for the taxpayers of this town. By law, I think
They
it's supposed to
post
be
their
in their
own
place of
meetings
business.
On the West Warwick Public School website.
No.
I believe, trust me, I go with the laws. It has to be published in their main place of business,
Which is the high school.
which is this
Well, it's
Harris
at the
Avenue,
Admin
Avenue.
building.
Yeah, it's the admin. building.
which is not open, I don't believe, as much as this. Okay, now, smoke and mirrors. I would encourage all of you to take a very close look at pages 34 through 39. Okay, very simple. Take a look at the positions, salaries, and benefits. I looked at that and I have to question what's going on. Maybe I'm misunderstanding things, but it raised lots of questions with regard to the total number, the positions, et cetera. I'm always an advocate for town employees. I said that 20 years ago. We have to be fair to the employees and the taxpayers. But when I see something like this, if I handed this to my admiral, it would have been thrown in a round file and I probably would have been fired. So I know, luckily I came to the meeting last night, got a copy of it, looked at it. I would encourage all of you, the devil's in the details. The taxpayers of this town are wired, you know, they can't afford much more. And take a look at it, please, because I think by the budget workshop, public hearing whatsoever, you might have some questions from the people, which would do away with questions at the financial town meeting. As I remember going to one when I first turned 18. I was one of the first ones in the building. And they had just lowered the voting age, and heaven help me if anybody was going to stop me. That was my right to vote. I've been like this for 50-something years, David. So just take a look at this. as I said, to me, it's smoke and mirrors. With regard to, I heard Mr. Licciardi talk about $500,000 for the elderly tax cut. I look at the numbers on that last page and it shocks me. Now, the final item I have for you with regard to executive session, which probably will be canceled because that case was dismissed on the 9th of March. The bill was paid, it was due by the 21st, it was paid on the 19th. But I do have some questions on that. Why is it that the attorney for Mr. DiMartino is the same attorney that is representing various, I wish he would have stayed here, various businesses or developers within the town? To me, that's a conflict of interest. I'm surprised your town solicitor hasn't raised that issue. He's the opposing attorney in that case, or was. So I'll leave it at that. But to have him stand before Mr. DiMartino and argue a case and also be defending Mr. DiMartino in court, if that isn't a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. And I'm raising it to you because I think you need to take action. Were you guys aware of that? You don't have to answer. That's a rhetorical
No,
question.
I'll
But to
answer.
me, that's bullshit. Pardon my French.
No. We weren't aware, I'm sorry, not we, I was not aware of that until about a month ago. It got brought forward to us as a group. I can't go into what was said in executive session. But I'm the one that put that on there last time, and I'm putting it on there this time. Because I do think it's wrong. And I do think something needs to be done about it. That's pretty much all I can say.
No, we want an update. We want an update. Thank you. So
No,
that's what
I don't,
the executive session is, an update.
I don't want to cancel it.
If we cancel it, then I think we should just make it public, but I don't think we can do that tonight, so.
No.
yeah.
Ross Adrian, former assistant town engineer, and address of 37 Brayton Street. I too want to thank you all for, especially like nights like tonight where you put in so much time. I agree with you about the carry, though I don't personally carry, but the fees and that. I think that you guys made the right choice. As far as vehicles, if you want to control some of the vehicles, why don't you, come up with a permitting fee allowing any business or private person to have X number of vehicles on their property for a particular fee. And as far as private residences and vehicles, what are you saying? That we can't have a stock car that we found, we can't have a hobby car, we can't have a classic car. What the hell? Steve has about 6. Bob Pacheco has 3 that he uses for parts for his bodies. I don't know how many Lily has. And then right across the street at 15 Brayton, at 15 Brayton, he's got a stock car, okay? And they all have them. I get fined $1,000 plus 12% per annum for having one truck that I want to change the chassis on, a job I can't do in 5 days, obviously. Okay, another woman that I know has a bar down the street, down the other end of town, and she got harassed by the building department. Said,
So Russ, I don't want to cut you off, but you brought this up to me the last time, and I did look into your.
I
matter.
brought
You
this up for about a
wait,
year.
hold on. And that was the last time you were here about this.
Okay,
I went to the building official's office. They gave me the pictures. You did have one truck. And how many motorcycles, how many things were in there?
they're dirt bikes.
Okay,
You don't
in-
register.
But Bob, in the picture, there was a stockpile of material. It wasn't just one thing, one thing, one thing. And then the reason why you were billed $1,000 was because you did not show up to court.
I did show up to court. As a matter of fact,
Wrong
I
date.
called the city council. They said, be there at 5. I was at 4:45. And
I messaged
not
you
not
back and
only,
told
I
you all
stayed
that.
there till 6:30. You refused to hear me. I had no hearing. And then he said, go apply for, oh, no, the appeal at 6th Division Court. No one there knew how to do it. 6th
So,
Division
so
Court's
again,
on.
after you came here, I even sent you the stuff that I received via Facebook, because now you said, Bob, is this picture, does this picture look familiar? And you replied back, yes. And then I said $1,000 was because you didn't go to court. Or you went the wrong date, whatever happened.
No, I went the
So-
right date.
So, but again, you have never come back to rectify that
To rectify what?
with the town, whether it's with the court, you get back on the docket to figure out the $1,000. I don't disagree that.
I mean, how do you even do that?
Well, that would be a clerk discussion, I think, would be more than anything, right? If somebody.
Anyway, as far as the sale of surplus cars, we've got about 30 police cars. I'm sure we could sell more than 4. As far as the fire truck, I think that's a great idea to get a new ladder truck. We have a lot of high-rise now apartment buildings that were formerly factories. Ethics training. This council seems pretty cool and pretty on the ball, but in the past, we have had ethics problems with the town council, without mentioning names. Ice chillers, if you're talking about keeping that place cold, you're talking about someone with a mechanical engineering degree, an advanced degree, usually a master's, okay? Not a civil engineer, and certainly not a wastewater treatment engineer. Now, everybody thinks that an engineer does everything in engineering. It's about like saying a doctor, like a cardiologist does the same thing as a gastroenterologist. Okay? You're not going to have your gastroenterologist work on your heart. You're not going to have your cardiologist do your colonoscopy. Okay? Well, engineers are the same way. Jim Jeremiah is a crackerjack wastewater treatment engineer. He knows crap about buried utilities, about pavement, and about electrical devices. Like I said, that's a mechanical engineer's job. Senior tax break. Just to give you an idea, there are a lot of people that are retired in this town. I happen to lose about a $400,000 investment by coming to work for this town. My house in Pawtucket. I am now on Social Security income strictly because I also lost my retirement. They don't have a retirement plan here. I get $17,000 a year for my wife and I to live on. 1/3 of that is taken up by property taxes. 1/3 is taken up by mortgage, and at least 2/3 of the balance of that is taken up by, sewer bills, water bills, electric bills, and car insurance. That leaves me maybe about 100, 150 a month to pay for clothing, food, and everything else that normally is incurred, medical bills, et cetera. Okay, so I agree with the gentleman that was up here before that I think the tax assessor that, we need to help out the senior citizens in this town. Other than that, thank you all for listening to me and have a wonderful night.
Russ, I'll get you the information on how to get back on the docket.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Any other public comment?
I want to thank the department heads that are still here, even though they don't need to be. So thank you.
I can get up real early. Any public comment on the, online?
They all went to bed.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Great night, everybody.
All in favor?